So now Facebook and Google, and Facebook, of course, includes Meta, have censored the Donald Trump's assassination attempt story. Facebook was blurring out the photo so you couldn't see it. Google was removing it from auto search, claiming, no, it's because we don't allow searches that allude to political violence. But if you type in assassination attempt of T, it gives you a huge list, except Donald Trump. So this, of course, is election interference. They are making their attempts at controlling the narrative. And then we have, throughout the day, news has been developing in Venezuela. They're on the verge of, well, I don't want to call it anything. Let's just say chaos, riots, protests, as the socialist Maduro claims he won, despite exit polling saying he lost, and people in Venezuela saying, you know what, they don't believe it, they don't care, they're not going to accept it. And then, of course, we have the weird story. That's right. Democrats have decided the line of attack against Donald Trump and J.D. Vance is to call them weird, which I don't quite understand because it's not that bad. It's just like, so? But apparently conservatives have latched onto it and they're going after it. So we'll talk about that. And then Joe Biden, of course, he wants to reform. That's what he's saying. Reform the Supreme Court. Sure. That's what he's going to try to do. So we'll talk about all of that. Before we get started, my friends, head over to mypillow.com/Tim. Use promo code Tim. Shout out to Mike Lindell and MyPillow, of course. We're big fans. We appreciate they do. And we're grateful for their support. They're sponsoring the show tonight. You've asked and MyPillow listened, my friends. To finally bring you the most requested offer ever. Get the queen size premium MyPillow, only $19.98. MyPillow is made with patented adjustable fill. It adjusts to your exact individual needs regardless of your sleep position, helps keep your neck aligned, and holds its shape all night long so you get the best sleep of your life. That's not all. You can get their 6-piece kitchen or bath towel sets, only $25. Their brand new mattress topper as low as $69.98. Get their famous MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $25 and so much more. Go to mypillow.com using promo code Tim to get the huge discount, or also call 1-800-925-9096. Again, shout out to Mike Lindell. He's a hardworking guy. It's wild to hear his story about how successful he was, the tens of millions of dollars his company was making, the top product at all these box stores. And then he decided he wanted the truth about what happened in 2020. And whether you agree or disagree on his story, he sacrificed everything for what he truly believed in. And I have tremendous respect for that. So shout out to Mike Lindell. You do great work. Also, head over to timcast.com. Click Join Us to become a member and support our work directly. As a member, you'll get access to our members-only Discord server, and you'll get to call in. Some of you will get to call in and join us tonight at 10 p.m. We have a Monday through Thursday call-in show, members only, where you can submit questions and actually join the show. Not so family-friendly, a lot of fun, and that will be at timcast.com. As a member, you are making all of this possible because we are member-supported. So if you like this show and think it should continue to exist, my friends, we need your help. It is the members that sustain this company. So if you think it is worth it, spare yourself a few cups of coffee per month. For $10 a month, you can be a member making all of this possible. And we really do appreciate it. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with all your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Buzz Patterson.
Hey, Tim. How are you?
I'm good. Who are you? What do you do?
Man, that's a really good question. Retired Air Force pilot, best-selling author, carried the nuclear football for Bill Clinton.
Wow.
Actually lived in the Clinton White House, had a bedroom and an office in the Clinton White House. Wherever Bill and Hillary went, I went with them. So for those 2 years.
So you've seen a lot.
I've seen a lot. I was there during the Monica Lewinsky stuff. I was there during the impeachment. Then I retired from the Air Force in 2001 and went to fly for Delta Airlines as a pilot and wrote a book called Dereliction of Duty, which was a New York Times bestseller, still actually 21 years later, still doing pretty well. The Clintons, I'm no longer on the Clintons' Christmas card list. So it's not a very...
And you're alive?
And I'm still alive. Hey, there's a lot of people out there.
We'll get into it.
Yeah. Oh, yep. So I mean, if Hillary's watching... I'm watching you too, Hill. So
she's a big IRL fan. She watches all the time.
I'm sure she does. So yeah.
Right on. Thanks for hanging out. Should be fun. We got Shane Cashman.
Well, I've got some questions for you. I'm the host of Inverted World Live. We're live every Sunday at 6 p.m. We had a crazy show last night. I interviewed a lady who escaped a cult, and one of the craziest stories I've ever heard. So tune in every Sunday. We'll see you there. What's up, Hannah Claire?
I'm good. I have to watch your episode. I love cult stories.
It's crazy.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimmel. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. That's Scanner News. Follow their work at Timcast News. I'm so glad you can join us tonight. Let's get started.
Here's the first story. We've got this from the Post-Millennial. Breaking. Facebook admits censoring iconic photo of Trump surviving assassination attempt. Quote, "This was an error." You know, I got to be honest. After 10 years of errors, I just don't believe you. Because the reality is, what they were doing was labeling the photo as altered. How does this happen? Independent third-party organizations decide to censor it. And Facebook plays this game of, well, I mean, we have nothing to do with it. So here's the story. Reports emerged on X on Monday, indicating that Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook had been censoring photos of Donald Trump, fist raised, face bloodied, after the assassination attempt against him. The photos were censored by third-party fact-checkers who claimed the photo had been altered. Facebook since admitted to censoring the photos in error. The iconic photo, snapped by a photographer for the AP, had been viral on social media before a copy of the photo was edited and circulated, which showed erroneously that Secret Service agents were smiling as they surrounded him after the shooting. While that photo was censored in the aftermath, the original was censored as well. After backlash, Meta admitted that the warning was incorrectly applied and was meant to apply to the altered image showing Secret Service agents smiling. The fact checkers and the AI software had determined that all images that resembled the AP original photo should be removed. Quote, "This was an error. This fact check was initially applied to a doctored photo showing the Secret Service agent smiling, and in some cases, our system incorrectly applied that fact check to the real photo. This has been fixed, and we apologize for the mistake." Now, over on the Google side of things, also from the Post-Millennial, Google is not auto-completing any story on the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. Their argument is that they remove suggestions associated with political violence, except when you search, you can see Tucker Carlson, the Pope, Teddy Roosevelt, Truman, but not Donald Trump. They're not omitting it because it's political violence. They're omitting it because it's Donald Trump. And I'll give you some context real quick as to how these third-party fact checkers work. Back in 2020, there was a preliminary story. This is the end of 2020, beginning, I think it was the end of 2020. There were the alternate slates of electors being submitted by Republicans for the January 6th vote. I covered this story, and the video I made was titled, "Republicans Attempt to Send Alternate Slate of Electors," something like this. Within the first 10 seconds of my video, I said, these are not the duly elected electors to be sent. This is Republicans choosing people of their own volition and challenging the courts. These third-party fact checkers claimed my video was fake news and blocked it on Facebook, and this got me demonetized. And when I reached out to them and said, there's nothing in my video that is fake news, they said, alternate electors are not real electors. And I was like, and? My title did not say they were real, and the first 10 seconds clarified that they were not the official electors, but it doesn't matter. Facebook, I reached out to them specifically, and Facebook staff said, we have nothing to do with this, and you are censored because of a third-party company. Take it up with them. And the third-party company said, oh, we never actually even watched your video. We just flagged it and removed it. That's what Facebook's third-party fact-checking is. It's run through these leftist organizations that determine anything they don't like they can remove. And this is Zuckerberg, who is allowing all of this to happen, to censor information that would benefit Donald Trump. And it's no surprise that it's happening again, because this is a system that they built.
Yeah, this comes 2 weeks after he did that interview and was like, that photo was badass, and I'm not going to make any endorsements this time. I always interpreted that as posturing to sort of win conservative users back over, because they know ultimately, especially during election year, they're not going to be able to get the kind of information because Facebook intervenes all the time and sort of lies about it. Google is the same, and it's probably true for most mainstream social media platforms, that they'll say, oh, well, people don't want to see political information, so we filter it out. But actually what they're doing is saying we selectively decide and ultimately rely on third parties to give ourselves some kind of defense.
Who are the third parties? I just don't trust these.
Funny how they're always left-leaning, right?
They're all left-leaning.
Yep.
And I think Daily Caller, I think they had factcheck.org or something. There was one conservative organization that got approved, and they were actually honest and fair, and the left lost their minds. Because that's their game. They have to control the narrative because, well, the truth isn't on their side.
And 1 to how many left-leaning organizations? 1 to 10?
Probably more, 50.
Right. There's not even a real effort to be unbiased, and that's what bothers me. I think there are a lot of people who get information predominantly from social media. You're really at the mercies of the overlords there.
Yeah. Didn't Candace sue the fact checkers at some point?
I don't know.
It was like a few years ago. Wonder whatever happened to that.
You have to, because they're lying.
Yeah.
And then they get you blocked on Facebook, and then you lose revenue.
Yep.
But they don't have the truth on their side. Donald Trump took a bullet, and they immediately started claiming he didn't even get shot. Mm-hmm. And then FBI Director Wray, who is a scumbag, also went to Congress and said, we don't even know if he got shot.
What was your take on that as someone who's been sort of in the executive branch?
Well, I worked with the Secret Service for my 2 years. Having the football, they protected me too, so I was in close proximity to them all the time. I mean, we did a lot of advances together, and that thing in Pennsylvania, to me, it just smacked of intentional incompetence. I went to advance meetings with the Secret Service guys. We always went over all of the potential scenarios, how to get them in, how to get them out, and it just the Secret Service guys that I saw in Butler, Pennsylvania, were not the kind of guys and girls I worked with. They're just not.
Intentional incompetence.
Yeah.
So you think somebody wanted him dead?
I do.
I agree.
As in this was allowed circumstance.
I believe that they intentionally, and they probably, this probably wasn't the first event either. They've probably been doing this on his campaign, his rallies for a while, but they were waiting for something to happen that they didn't have to be responsible for, that somebody would take him out. And I guarantee you, I did a lot of advances with the Secret Service. That rooftop would have been taken out way before anybody got up there. It was intentional incompetence.
Dan Bongino, who was Secret Service, was like, how is the roof not secured? And he said if you couldn't secure it for whatever reason, you'd block line of sight. And there were windows. And he told this story where he said, we had one building we couldn't secure, so he said, go buy fake snow, and we spread all the windows out. Then you could remove it later.
Right.
Because he's like, look, if they're going to get a shot off, at least it'll be random. In this instance, it was an open door, it was an invitation. And we're getting more and more information that first it was 2 minutes before people are screaming. Then it was they saw him 10 minutes before, then 26, then an hour. Now it's 90 minutes.
90 minutes, and we had an opportunity we had anti-drone people there for the Secret Service who did not anti-drone anything. They let the shooter fly a drone around for a while, and we had the guys that could have taken that out, just jammed it or whatever. We didn't do that either. The incompetence to me, when I worked at the White House, Bongino was on the Secret Service at the same time. Great dude. That Secret Service is not what we're seeing today, not what we're paying for today.
I got to say, though, intentional incompetence, I think you've just got to say intentional. Because the idea of intentional incompetence would be someone in a logistical capacity pulling the strings to make sure the job could not be done properly. That intent means, in and of itself, it's not incompetence. Of the agents themselves,
right?
The next story we're going to jump into in a minute, they got these cell phone messages now. But of the agents themselves, knowing he was there for hours, flying a drone, it's not. I don't even want to blame the good agents, and we need to figure out who those agents were. But if you're an agent and you're like, hey, what's the deal with this threat? And then your boss or superior says, no, don't worry, we've got it under control. You'd be like, okay, all right.
Sure.
And they're lying to you. And they want this thing to happen. That's just intentional.
When I hear intentional incompetence, I hear like they're using incompetence as a shield for the people who want to do it with intent to hide behind, right?
Yes.
Like when you're saying the stuff about the anti-drone, are those people being told to stand down and not mess around with the drone that we were hearing about?
I believe that they were.
That's insane.
I believe that they were, and I believe that our snipers, the Secret Service guys, were basically waiting for the go-ahead to actually pull the trigger. And the fact that Trump was on the stage at all just is beyond any protocol you would ever expect from President of the United States or a candidate who's for the President of the United States. It just doesn't work.
Right. And let's add into the fact that afterwards now they're censoring the information. Google doesn't auto-complete the story, so you don't stumble upon it. If you're someone who's not paying attention to the news, you're not going to find it. And if you're on Facebook, you'll scroll right past that image because it told you it was fake.
Exactly right.
And how come the only image we see of crooks is like the 8th grade image?
I thought he was 16.
In
The one
that?
in the American flag. Sure.
The one that looks like he's like in a yearbook photo.
Yeah, I had heard that was from when he was 16, which, 8th grade,
Still,
16, very young.
it just seems
Considering
old.
he's like 20 years old now, he's out of high school. He don't even get a driver's license photo. Like,
It's just all of that seems like control and intentional incompetence, but like a weird mix of the two.
Or just intentional.
I think a lot of it is intentional.
Yep.
I also think the world is going through a pandemic of incompetence that the evil people use to hide behind.
We still don't have an official story.
No, we don't. No.
And I think that right there is crazy.
Yeah.
Usually they come right out and say X, Y, and Z. Here's how it went down. Here's who the person was. Here's what. This time it's just like, we have no idea.
Yeah.
It's a crazy guy who got his dad's gun, I guess. How did he get through the security? We don't know.
Yeah.
He somehow got on the roof, I guess. And it's like, what's the story? Like,
Yeah.
what happened?
Was there a ladder? Wasn't there a ladder? Where'd the gun come from? Was it pre-staged or was it not?
Right.
Why weren't we flying drones? What?
How did he go back and pick
how
up the
do
gun
you-
from his car to bring it into the secure zone? What
Exactly.
No, there's no story.
No.
And I think it's because their plan screwed up. They were going to blame Iran or something, and now the story makes no sense. They can't roll with it, and they screwed it up.
100%.
Well, let me do this. Let me ask you this question. Having been, in the White House at the time of the Clintons, everybody thinks they're up to no good. There is what started as a meme has now become, it's fascinating. There's the Hillary Clinton meme, right? I should say it's actually a conspiracy. I'll put it this way. It starts as a conspiracy theory that the Clintons are involved somehow in the death of all of these people. I don't believe it. If you take a look at any high-profile individual and look at their periphery, there's going to be a bunch of security companies and insurance companies and international diplomats, and you're going to find a network in conflict and crisis of people who die. That being said, a lot of suicides. And so, this conspiracy theory turns into a meme where now even run-of-the-mill Gen Zers, anybody dies, anybody, you name it. Like Toys R Us went out of business, and then someone made the fake tweet of Toys R Us saying, we have information that will lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton. And teenagers are laughing about it. So, in your experience, what do you think of that? Have you seen anything in relation to what was going on with that stuff?
Well, I arrived at the White House right after Vince Foster. So,
And go over that story for people who don't know.
okay, so Vince Foster was White House counsel, purportedly was having an affair with Hillary. She and him went back to Whitewater, Arkansas, attorney days. I think he got too close to what was going on with her, and he apparently, quote unquote, committed suicide in Marcy Park off the George Washington Parkway by himself. So I got there right after that, and I can't tell you exactly what I think happened there, but I do know that. Remember the files that were missing out of Vince Foster's office, the Whitewater files? I carried those around for a couple of years because Hillary Clinton only wanted the military aid to be able to move them on and off. So everywhere she went, the Vince Foster files went.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you hear and any explanation other than that?
No, I did. I wasn't in a position as an Air Force officer to,
You're just told to carry this, and it's a
carry
very
it.
weird.
So when we would
that
go
must
to,
have been so frustrating.
so we would go to Camp David, she would only have me pull him off of Marine One and put him into her bedroom, or we would be on Air Force One. I would put him into their closet, and always had to be the one to put him into the limousine, motorcade. So
like a horror crux.
there is, there is, there's a lot to be said about that. I didn't see anybody whack him, but.
Is it true? I remember that story about, and I don't know if it's true, maybe you know it, that not Kamala. Well, they're so similar, I mix them up. Hillary was on a flight with the Air Force, and her wine glass was empty, and so she holds it up, and she goes, and is that true?
There's so much more I could tell you about how Hillary treats the military. I mean, that was true, and that was just insignificant in the scheme of things.
These Air Force officer, they're officers on these planes, right?
Well, the pilots are officers. The folks working in the back are senior enlisted personnel, non-commissioned officers.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And she's like, "Fill my wine for me."
Yeah, she was like that. So when I do we have time to tell a couple stories?
Tell.
When I first got to the White House, one of the first things that my predecessor said was that Hillary doesn't want to have to communicate in the hallways of the White House with anybody, senior staff. She just doesn't want to have to say good morning or good afternoon.
She's above that.
She's above it. So I would see senior staff members diving into doorways of offices so they didn't have to encounter Hillary. I got to a point as I said, screw that. I'm not gonna keep doing this. I'm an Air Force officer. The thing about that job people don't understand is I was not a political appointee. I mean, I was hired by the White House because they needed a nuclear football carrier, and you can't apply for the job.
How do you qualify for it? Like,
they called me.
And you don't know why your name came up?
I was a pilot. I'd flown in combat, had all those squares punched.
Yeah.
And I was one of 6 that they called to interview for the job, and I was the one they hired. At the time, I didn't really want it, but my then fiance, now wife, said you can't say no to the White House, so they offered me the job. So Hillary, I'm going to try to keep it clean here. Hillary is a very profane, evil, vindictive human being, and she doesn't like the military. She doesn't like anybody around her that doesn't feel the same way that she does. And another situation when I first got there was she wanted to ban military uniforms in the White House. I mean, there's only a handful.
This is when she was first lady. Like, what was the explanation?
First lady. Yeah,
it just offends her. It doesn't match her decor.
This is Bill was running for re-election. This is '96. He was running for re-election, and she wanted to mitigate or minimize the appearance of the military in and around her husband and herself. So that was my first interaction with her, was her trying to ban military uniforms. And the Secret Service said, man, that's not very intelligent. This guy's got the nuclear football. He can't be wearing dark suits and sunglasses like Secret Service guys. We need to be able to find him for security reasons. And so she finally relented. But that's who Hillary is. I mean, Bill and I kind of got along personally. I mean, we jogged together, and we wouldn't hang out, but we
You had a rapport.
Yeah, we had a rapport. Hillary will pull your heart out and just Kalima. And Kamala's going to be worse.
Oh, I believe it. They both cackle.
They do.
What's up with that? Cackling Kamala.
It's a liberal thing.
They just laugh for no reason.
I guess.
PR tells them. Yeah. We need more laughter.
What's always crazy to me about that story of Hillary raising her wine glass and holding it out while not looking, expecting these NCOs and officers to fill her wine glass for, is that in my mind the expectation is anyone in this country would be standing up and going, "Do you guys need anything? I'm going to go grab a drink. I'll get you whatever you guys like." Standard, normal human courtesy.
Yeah.
And what she's doing, it was out of a cartoon.
Normal human.
It's Cruella DeVille.
Oh, she totally is.
Well, this story had stood out to me once that the White House First Lady is in charge of decorating for Christmas, and Melania Trump always got all this kind of flack because you just had to be mean to her, which I think is uncalled for. But I had heard that Hillary Clinton had decorated at least one year. It was all designer labels, all the baubles on the Christmas tree were from basically fashion houses in New York. And to me, this really spoke to the desire for elite and affluence and sort of to seem special and better than everyone else. Right. It doesn't sound it sounds like a materialistic Christmas.
She was in competition with Ghislaine Maxwell.
Well, you know.
So.
And she's getting rid of military uniforms at the same time. Isn't he bombing Kosovo at that point?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's from Arkansas, where presumably tons of people serve in the military, right? I mean,
absolutely.
The optics are strange.
I think Bill got the military for the most part. I don't think Hillary. I mean, Hillary never, and probably to this day, does not understand what the military is all about. And I can guarantee you that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris don't understand the military whatsoever.
So her wanting to be president is just a power play? If she doesn't want to be commander in chief, is it just to start war so she likes war and they make money off of it?
I don't think I think it's all about ego.
Yeah.
And it's about power.
Yeah.
And that was certainly that way for the Clintons. And I always kind of try to psychoanalyze them a little bit. What makes them tick? Because again, Bill was kind of your gregarious, funny storyteller kind of guy. And Hillary was the exact opposite. Hillary was all about the power and keeping the trains on time and, keeping Bill in line. And trust me, that became an
didn't work.
issue.
I was going to say, that
No,
didn't go well.
that became an issue during
We have to
Monica.
hide in the Oval Office.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, what was that like? I mean, like behind the scenes, was she screaming and punching holes in walls?
Hillary?
Yeah.
Oh, heck yeah. I saw her. I mean, I talk about it in my first book a little bit, Dereliction of Duty. Her just destroy the staff. And she would destroy her husband. I mean, we were doing a fundraising thing in Washington D.C. in a hotel, and we were in the elevator, going from the motorcade into the elevator up to the top floor. And Hillary had just found out that Janet Reno was going to make her testify in the Whitewater thing, and Hillary just freaking lost it, man. And so we get in the elevator. It's the First Lady, it's the President, it's myself, it's the doctor, and it's one Secret Service guy. And she is just going. She's just going at President Clinton because she's holding her husband responsible for the fact that she has to be testifying now. And so every four-letter word you've ever heard, I heard in that little
Golf.
diatribe. Yes, golf. That wasn't used. But every other one, and being an Air Force pilot, I've got a pretty good repertoire when it comes to that. But Hillary had it all, and just destroyed the dude. And then when we get to the top floor and the elevator door opens, they hold hands and walk out and wave like.
Well, I'm wondering, because you got to observe Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton's dynamic up close, like what their dynamic was like, if you see any of that between Jill and Joe Biden. Because I sometimes view Jill Biden as the one who seems to be in control of that dynamic.
I think it's exactly the same. Especially when Bill got in trouble with Monica and the impeachment stuff, Hillary took over. She was co-president. She ran the meetings upstairs in the residence, the crisis meetings in the residence. She basically told him what to say, what not to say, what to do. And I get, and we've all seen Joe Biden's decline. I guarantee you, Jill's the one that's running that show, and I guarantee you, she didn't want to drop out of the race because that's her power.
Yeah.
Her money.
So you think Kamala is basically Hillary 2.0?
I do. In fact, maybe not. Well, I don't think Kamala's as smart as Hillary.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it was funny because there was, Donald Trump said we're dealing with a low IQ individual.
Right.
He's like, I'm not talking about Joe. We got a new low IQ individual. And then this woman on X was like, you know what he means. He's talking about black people. And I was like, if someone says another person is stupid and the other person goes, oh, you're talking about black people, then I'd be like, I don't think it's hard to figure out who the racist actually is in that circumstance.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like you. Yeah.
Hillary's intelligent. She just doesn't have the political chops that her husband has. She can't speak. She can't control a room. She doesn't have the charisma, but she's smart.
What is this thing that Hillary and Kamala do where they just laugh inappropriately? I have to imagine that it's a consultant who told them, like, you can't be commanding because that's viewed as naggy, so come off as jovial and dismissive.
I think that's exactly right on. I think that's exactly right on. To soften their exteriors, you make them laugh a lot.
It does not work.
No,
it is creepy.
I think it's super creepy, and I think people see right through it.
I do too.
I think, and that's why which was it, New Yorker or whatever, that wrote the power of Kamala's laugh or woman's laughter or whatever. It was
They hired a laugh person to study the laugh or something.
No, she's saying that it's like sexism, right? That like people are mean to women because their laughs are viewed as like, screechy.
Yeah, here it is.
Whatever.
Kamala Harris and the threat of a woman's laugh. You see, the cackling Kamala, they call her cackling Kamala. It's backfired. And now I watched recently, because there's been a bunch of examples of this for Kamala Harris where she's asked a serious question and she starts laughing. And I remember one time it was something like she's walking into a building and the reporter asks her about something, maybe Afghanistan, and she starts laughing. And I was like, well, that was inappropriate. Recently, somebody asked her, some reporter, you've recently been labeled the most liberal member of Congress. How would you answer that? And she goes, I'm like, why are you laughing at that? It's an honest question about your political leaning. She just laughs. And then she gives no answer. And I'm just like, is it like a laugh track thing? Like she's going for the Big Bang Theory vote?
Well, there was this, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'll try and find it in a second. But there was this reality TV star who was sentenced to serious prison time in California. And I just saw a video of him saying Kamala Harris was in the courtroom when it was happening. And she just looked at me and laughed. I think you'll hear a lot of these stories, and I can imagine, they tout her record as a prosecutor, but you'll hear these things where people were like, there was something very serious going on, something I was personally affected by, and she was laughing.
So she was probably laughing when denying people the DNA evidence to get them out of jail when they were wrongfully imprisoned.
That's right.
That adds up. Did the Clintons ever reach out to you after your book came out and were like, or anyone in their team being like, what did you do?
Hillary tried to take my Air Force retirement pension.
What?
She's vindictive. You already said this.
She was a senator from New York.
That's right.
Brand new senator from New York. And the book came out in 2003. And she actually went and tried to have the Air Force cancel my pension. Whoa. And I just turned around and I went to the press and said, this is how evil she is. Mm-hmm. And I challenged her to a debate. I said, anytime, anywhere. And of course, they just backed off. They were just calling much more attention to the book, and it was already.
You think she's done from politics?
No.
What do you think she's got up her sleeve?
Yeah, I don't. I think she'll take whatever is next. I think that she might be kind of got her fingers crossed that Kamala's going to fall on her face and that there's still a position.
I wouldn't be
surprised.
surprised.
Why they were so quick to? Because the Clintons endorsed within the first 24 hours, whereas Obama and Barack and Obama and Michelle held out. Right. I thought Barack Obama and Michelle were going to wait several weeks. They kind of came, during the first week of this Kamala Harris campaign, eventually endorsed. But why did the Clintons back Kamala so quickly if she's still politically ambitious?
I don't know. That's a really good question. They were probably all counseled by Barack and said, "Hey, we're going to pull together and do this because we're going to get our butts kicked in November if we don't circle the wagons here."
Maybe she thinks she can get like an advisory.
She'll be something.
Yeah.
She'll be something for Kamala. And
makes me wonder who's behind the attempt on Trump's life.
Interesting.
What's going on here?
I'd be afraid for Kamala being so close to the Clintons if you let Hillary near the White House.
Yeah, there's that.
Well,
a lot of potential accidents.
And shouldn't all Democrats be more panicked by the fact that the Secret Service failed? If they don't think it was specific to Trump, shouldn't they say, "Hey, we all get Secret Service protection. This seems bad"?
You would think. I was watching the hearings last week, and I thought, if I'm a Democrat and I'm high profile, I want the Secret Service to be
top notch.
They're just not going to shoot at Trump. Mm-hmm. It could be anybody.
I would have, if I were RFK Jr., I would have felt like it was an insult to give me Secret Service after all the time he was whining about not having it, and then they finally gave it to him. Like, why do I want these people?
Let's jump to this story from the Daily Mail. Trump counter-snipers' chilling text messages before assassination attempt reveal how gunman was one step ahead of Secret Service and local law enforcement. That's not true. The text messages reveal that Secret Service actually knew exactly what he was doing the whole time and did nothing. Take a look at this. Let's pull up these texts. Someone followed our lead and snuck in and just parked by our cars, just so you know. I'm just letting you know because you see me go out with my rifle and put it in my car, so he knows you guys are up there. He's sitting to the direct right on a picnic table about 50 yards from the exit. So at 4:26, Secret Service is aware that someone snuck in right behind him. They did nothing. They didn't say, "Hey, guy, what are you doing?" They didn't say, "Hey, hands in the air. You have just snuck into a secure zone with Secret Service." I was at Mar-a-Lago with Secret Service, and they'd have a Secret Service agent, and you'd walk by and say, "Can I help you? Where are you going?" And I'm like, "Oh, we're going to go downstairs. We're going to the party or whatever." And they'd be like, "Turn around, go the other way. You have to go down those stairs." And we'd be like, "Okay." You mean to tell me a guy sneaks in, and they're like, "That's fine. Take a look. There's more." Thumbs up, Roger that.
Yo, the "just so
Nothing
you know"
done.
in the one text has a lot of heavy lifting.
Has a lot of heavy lifting.
Why are you saying "just so you know"?
Here's more. They post pictures of the guy. They say, "Kid learning around building we are in." I think they meant lurking. AGR, I believe it is. I did see him with a rangefinder looking towards stage, for your information. If you want to notify SS snipers to look out, I lost sight of him. Also, a bike with a backpack sitting next to it in rear of building that was not seen earlier. Call it into command and have a uniform check it out. 5:40 p.m.
Seems a little lax.
Seems like
I lost sight of him. What?
Huh?
What's the explanation? He snuck in and they were like, "That's fine."
All of this just seems like it's chaos. The other day we were talking about flooding the zone with information to just make everyone not know what's going on.
Yep.
All this seems like it's part of that. Just dump everything out. Let everyone who believes anything believe anything they want.
Well, it's true because we're trying to figure out what happened on this day. And of course, we're believing these law enforcement sources because they're somewhat damning to Secret Service. So we're like, wow, look at these texts. They kind of knew. It could be way worse than we realize. And this could be the cover up. I have no idea. But I will tell you this. It's pretty wild how the left just believes literally anything. Like the Project 2025 stuff, it's just like this weird made up stuff, and they're all like, yep, they just believe it.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. You know, I had this moderate journalist hit me up and said, they asked me, how come we're not audience captured? And I was like, I don't know what you mean. And she was just like, well, I watch all these other YouTube shows and no one ever pushes back on comments or chats. You're the only show I've ever seen even do it once. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, if someone comments and I think they're wrong, I'll tell them they're wrong, I guess. But this is the reality that most people just march in lockstep. But that being said, on our side, you can't get away with lying like this. If I said something like the Second Amendment never protected cannons, the chat would explode. I'd make $10 million in super chats from everyone telling me I was wrong. And they'd be like, that's not correct. You are wrong. You are lying. Fix it. Correct it. Now, for the most part, because people watching know that I'm trying to get the facts right, when I get something wrong, they'll comment and they'll say, hey, Tim, you were wrong about this. It's this thing. Like the other day, I said River Seine, and they said, Tim, it's pronounced Sen. And I went, okay. Thank you. Yeah. It is pronounced River Seine. Yep. And people will correct me on something. I'll say, oh, okay, well, there you go. I didn't know that. Yeah. Most shows don't do that. Most, like Rachel Maddow, none of the people watching fact check her. She says, Donald Trump brought a clown to his birthday party. And they'll go, what? For real?
Lord of the Rings is a gateway to white nationalism.
Yeah.
That's what she's saying lately.
She said that?
No, yeah.
Wait, recently she said that?
I think she said recently. Because J.D. Vance, right?
He's a fan of Lord of the Rings?
I believe so. It seemed like they were redoing what happened with, what's his name, who was reading Ayn Rand with Mitt Romney. Paul, what's it?
They tried making Lord of the Rings white supremacy a long time ago, claiming that orcs were black people and that it was like a reference to, and it's like, it's not. That's not. It's like Tolkien explains a lot of this stuff, and it's not a reference at all. Like, but they need everything to be racist because they want to destroy art and history and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But going back to the Trump stuff, the question is, as Tucker mentioned, we may get answers on this one because I think Hannah Claire was mentioning it before. Democrats get Secret Service protection as well, and if this is allowed to stand, who's going to trust any Secret Service protection ever again? Right.
I was actually kind of interested. I don't know if you saw this, but they announced who was going to be on the House committee that's investigating the Secret Service. And some of the Democrats that are on there, from my anecdotal research or my experience with their names, they tend to have good relationships with fairly conservative members of Congress. Like I'm thinking of Jared Mikowski. He's from Florida. I know he was like the Santa at Tim Burchett's Christmas party. Like they worked together on a couple different committees. And so it's kind of interesting to me because when they had the January 6th committee, they put on people that Republicans were like, no, they're not effective members. They're not going to represent the side. Democrats are like, no, we're bringing them on. Whereas maybe there is a more neutral, less progressive faction of Democrats that are going to be on and are going to ask these real questions. Because again, like the Secret Service is something taxpayers pay for with the guarantee that they protect both Republicans and Democrats. So if you believe that this was only targeted at Trump and it's because of Secret Service failures, that means anyone protected by them is at risk. Unless you think, oh no, the Secret Service only wanted something to happen to Donald Trump, which would be also a problem.
Why aren't Secret Service talking with like earpieces?
They're texting each other on the phone.
Why are they texting?
They weren't at the security briefing. There was a threat lurking around with a rangefinder, and they said, send Trump out. It's fine.
Yeah.
How are those real?
Yeah, again, this is so antithetical to the Secret Service that I worked with. I mean, this is it was just professional. The meetings beforehand, the earpieces, the communications, everybody was on the same network. Mm-hmm. There was no problem with talking to local police departments that were affiliated with, trying to enhance the security. It was just all like clockwork. It makes me think it was intentional.
I think it was Cy Hirsch who reported on some of the JFK stuff that happened at, in the grassy knoll. I believe he was saying that there were a lot of switch-arounds with the Secret Service last minute before what went down. Right. Which, when this happened, I immediately thought of that, and it's very possible. Just put in the rookies, see who's around the area. Just throw them in there. We don't have enough. Joe Biden's got something else going on.
It wasn't the A team. I can tell you that. It wasn't the A team.
I don't even think it was the B team or the C team.
Yeah. All it takes is one logistical specialist, agent, or whatever, to simply say, don't worry, we took care of it. Hey, there's a guy lurking around. What do you think? It's fine. Roger that. All under control. Yeah. And then they send out Donald Trump. So I don't know that we actually get this story. Maybe if Donald Trump wins, we'll figure something out. I hope he does. There's a lot of people who should be pardoned. that are being unjustly held for insane violations of due process.
Right. And one of the challenges that it's the federal government investigating other branches of the federal government. So, like, hypothetically, if this House committee is pretty effective, which we've seen them struggle with subpoenas and trying to get people to answer questions, like, if they are able to get something else, it's, we're about to be in August. They can get information out. When would it be? September? October? I don't think we'll have answers before January, but if we do, it could really have an impact on how the election goes, and everyone who's involved with that is aware of it.
I could see them stonewalling transparency from the Democratic side if it makes Trump look like a victim, because they love to be the victim class, and the last thing they want their enemy to be is a victim.
And it interrupts the political violence narrative that they had been pushing for a long time, that political violence only comes from the right. If this, as I think it was, ideologically motivated, then ultimately, it goes against everything they have been trying to claim for a long time here.
Absolutely.
I made this point earlier this morning that it's frustrating sometimes when there's big news stories, because I'm trying to put together a couple shows per day where we break down a bunch of different stories and say, here's what's happening in the world, here's what we think about them. When there's one big news story, the entire front page of every website has nothing but that story. And it makes it very difficult, because it's like we've read everything we could read about this story. I mean, you can't squeeze 2 hours talking about one story no matter what you do. And so often what happens is on my morning show, I'll end up pulling in like some cultural commentary. It's like, here's some fat liberal saying that ice cream should be government mandated or something. Right. And it's like not really that big of news, but it allows me to opine on cultural stuff. Donald Trump nearly dies. Breaking news, major historical moment, and the news is moving on from it rapidly and trying to downplay it. And Google won't let you search for it, and Facebook is covering the photo up. I'm actually pretty surprised that, I know it's been 2 weeks, but you'd think still there would be like Congress would be doing nothing but this. If it was Joe Biden, I guarantee you for 2 weeks, the whole world would be like the whole world, not even just the country, would be like nothing but this.
Yep. Yeah. They effectively erased an assassination attempt.
Well, and I think that's part of the timing of when Biden withdrew, right? I mean, they knew that nothing was going to interrupt the conversation about the assassination attempt, especially considering that the RNC was right after, and people were really, kind of rallied by Donald Trump's appearance there, unless Biden dropped out. That was the only way to reset the media narrative. Yeah,
and the thing that happens with all these big events, like you're talking about reading the news, everything, everyone's writing about everything. I keep thinking of East Palestine with this stuff, because I think there's an amount of incompetence and intention behind these like violent situations. So everyone's seeing the mushroom cloud in East Palestine, train blew up. And then no one's really following up with all the crazy stuff that comes out, it trickles out later, over a year. Norfolk Southern stopped, we would find out Norfolk Southern stopped doing real inspections on train cars. It was like a minute and a half for each side of a train car, went down to 30 seconds. And all these things kind of added up. So people following along be like, oh, that makes a lot more sense now, supposedly. And we'll probably get something like that over the next, year or 30 years when it comes to Trump and this assassination attempt.
Let me pull up this story from Newsweek. Donald Trump photo without ear bandage raises eyebrows. It raises eyebrows. My eyebrows raised not because of Trump, but because of you, Newsweek. And Newsweek's actually not the worst. They get a lot of things that are decently bad. But there's a picture purportedly of Donald Trump climbing up some stairs that was taken on Saturday. The AP, it was filed, Donald Trump boards his plane on July 27th. The photo showing Trump seemingly his healed ear only 2 weeks after it was grazed by a bullet has raised eyebrows. I first want to point out, this could be a late filing for all we know, that it's a photo from a month ago, and the guy who had it just filed it with the AP. I'm assuming it actually is from Saturday, but I have come to a startling conclusion, my friends. How could Donald Trump's ear look totally fine with no bandage on it 2 weeks later?
He got a new ear.
I got a crazy idea. It healed.
That's a conspiracy theory. You take that back right now.
It was a graze. It was skin damage that bled, and it's been 2 weeks. It healed. And I don't know what else to tell you. Like, I looked up skin abrasion damage, and it's like it could take from like 72 hours to a week to heal. Depending on how deep it is, it might have to take up to 2 weeks, and more serious cuts may require stitches and take up to a month. And I'm like, a bullet grazed his ear, which damaged the skin. He wore a bandage. It scabbed over. It healed. He took the bandage off. And they're like, yeah, but he's 78. It should take longer than that. And I'm like, maybe. I don't know. Or it's been 2 weeks and his ear healed. What were they expecting to happen? I'm sorry. Look, I'm like, I thought there'd be some kind of scar. I am surprised it healed this quickly. But assuming it's a photo that's from now, this is them just once again trying to claim Trump actually didn't get shot by saying ears don't heal.
Well, I think there's sort of the reality that he's a billionaire president. So he probably has access to good medical attention, right? I mean, even if he has some kind of, let's say, clear, very small stitching, right? I think whoever is taking care of Donald Trump knows his ears are going to be photographed, and he probably doesn't want them to look mangled or worse than they have to. But I think a lot of it is just hysteria because, again, they don't want it to be that this was actually what it was, an attempted assassination where he was hit by the bullet. And they want it to be shrapnel from the non-broken teleprompter, or they want to say, no, he just faked it and popped the blood.
Like gel pack.
They want it to be something it's not, because otherwise you have this really, heroic narrative coming out from the Butler, Pennsylvania rally, and they can't have anything good happen to the Trump campaign. When we talked earlier about the censoring of the photo, right? Like, there are so many people who don't like Donald Trump who saw that photo of him, fist in the air, flag behind him, or saw the clip of him standing up and the reaction from the crowd chanting USA, and were like, I don't like this guy, but man, like, this is a powerful moment for the country. And they can't have that be a victory for Donald Trump. They can't have had something that was so terrifying and sort of like could have been this national tragedy be something that he made into this rallying moment for patriotism.
This narrative that they're pushing with Trump's ear is not that he was hit by a shard of glass. The narrative here, what they're arguing is that his ear shouldn't be healed. That would imply the gel pack conspiracy theory. That is, when the shots were fired, Donald Trump raises his hand to his ear. Yeah, because he got shot. But they argued that he actually smacked a gel pack in his hat, splattering it all over his face, drops down, and then he's got the gel on his face, the fake blood pack. And then it was all staged. He wears a fake bandage for a little bit, takes it off. Or, hear me out, it healed.
He was our first pro wrestling president. He did learn a lot in that ring with Vince McMahon. Anything's possible.
Yeah,
So
but
so you do think the gel
I like going
the
down the rabbit hole.
The conspiracy would have to be that Donald Trump organized with the Secret Service detail
Yeah.
to allow this crackpot kid to come to the property, which means they had to know the kid was in advance, get the kid in there, get the kid to climb on the roof with a gun, and then plan on killing a kid so that Donald Trump, they could play fake noises of gunshots, and then Donald Trump could pop a gel pack, and the Secret Service would be in on it. I mean, I'm not
I'm
not going anywhere.
It would satisfy the theory of people who think he's the bad guy, who aren't leftists, like the people who think he's the Antichrist.
It's just so crazy how these people call everybody fascist, everybody conspiracy theorists, but they are deluded, paranoid narcissists screaming. I mean, like the Olympic stuff too, which I don't know if we'll have time to get into. They mocked the Last Supper. The people who participated said they mocked the Last Supper, and now no, we didn't. No, we didn't. It's just. Everything's a conspiracy. No one's allowed to be offensive, but then they are. Everyone's a conspiracy theorist, but when they bring up conspiracies, they're not. It's all the iron law of woke projection.
They literally, in the minutes after the attempt on Trump's life, were saying he staged it. Meanwhile, they refused to acknowledge Governor Whitmer doing the same thing, to her with the whole
FBI.
Fednapping plot and staking out her place on Mackinac Island. It just doesn't. To them, it doesn't exist.
Yeah. I don't know, or Trump's ear healed.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think this is a prosthetic ear perfectly attached to his
Yeah,
head?
I think Trump's a badass, and I think he healed.
Yeah.
And
It's been 2 weeks.
yeah, I mean, the guy got hit.
Yeah.
He got grazed. So he is old, but the dude's in great shape.
It is funny how the age narrative is now something that the left-wing media is struggling with itself, because they're like, well, he's old. And it's like, that was our criticism of Joe Biden. You told us that we couldn't criticize him that way.
Do people fall for this stuff still?
They do. And that's the unfortunate thing is they do. And it's especially on social media.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's a whole place called Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, where people believe
Facebook
all that
or
stuff.
X.
Here's what we do. We've talked about the voting requirement. I have a new voting requirement. Here's what we do. I have a question for, let's say, who should I ask the question to? Hannah Claire.
Hello.
Let me try and get this one right. And this would be the test. The test would be administered at every DMV, and if you answer correctly, then you get registered to vote. And if you don't answer correctly, then you can't vote. And the question is this. A man and his son are driving in their car, and they get into a horrible car accident. They're both comatose and rushed to the hospital. and rushed into the operating room where the doctor comes in, looks down at the son and says, I can't operate on this person. This is my son. Who's the doctor?
The kid's mother?
That's correct.
Okay.
Is the child's mother. And what I love about that is most people go, his grandfather? He's talking about the dad, or my favorite
only men should be doctors. That's the
my favorite was his gay other dad, and it's like it's his mom. His mom's a doctor, and then people are like, no. So there's got to be some kind of like slightly out of the box question that if you can't solve, or it could just be like, I don't know, take a modern. The reason why you can't actually do tests is because then the left gets control of it and they lie and they make fake tests. Mm-hmm. But there's got to be we got to make voting harder. Sorry, when the left, here's what I love. The left says, Republicans are trying to make voting harder. And I'm like, you want Republicans to vote? You want low information fascist Christians to vote? No? Okay, well then we all agree, right? If you think Republicans are too stupid and they're in a cult, then set some requirement that makes it hard for them to vote. How about that? And the reality is, I think the idea that works best is you have to sign up for selective service to get a voter ID in order to vote, men or women. It becomes optional. Dudes can say, you know what? I'm not going to do it. You turn 18, you don't have to, but you can't vote. Women, you can't vote. But if you choose to sign up, that means in an emergency, you'll be drafted. You then get a voter card and you can vote. I think that solves everything. Liberals will stop voting overnight. But they have a choice to.
It's brilliant.
They have a choice to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who do you think's left? I feel like there's a lot of liberals probably in the military forces these days.
Sure.
After like everything happened with the vaccines.
It's gotten way worse.
I feel like I grew up near West Point, right? So Millie was talking about their syllabus in the past few years. It sounds like stuff that I was seeing other professors do when I was a professor at colleges. And that's you're supposed to be making the leaders here.
I can't believe where our military is currently.
It's sad.
And it started under Bill Clinton, and then it kind of kicked in big time under Obama, and then Biden has just turned it upside down.
That's the conspiracy for you, Shane. Aliens are in control, and the way you dismantle global military power is by getting them as woke as possible.
Yeah, aliens are Marxist.
That's right.
Yeah. They're like Yuri Bezmenov.
Communist aliens.
Yeah, communist aliens. A new movie coming to a movie theater near you. What happened with Bill Clinton that you started to see that change?
Well, it was don't say gay, or don't say gay, but
no, it was don't ask, don't tell.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Right.
And then they started doing co-ed barracks, which for all ranks.
Seems like a terrible idea. I'm just going to put that one out there.
Well, especially when you're in combat.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a horrible idea.
What would happen if like one of the female service members got pregnant?
They are allowed to stay there for a certain period of time, and they get sent home.
Wow.
They take them off of combat duty or flying duty after a period of time. But right now, I just saw a thing today on my phone is that the U.S. Air Force now has manuals out about microaggressions and how I want my Air Force aggressed.
Aggressed.
I want us to be savages.
Yeah. Totally.
If we're worried about microaggressions because of somebody's pronouns were wrong or whatever. That's not who we are.
Yeah, it was weird growing up seeing a shift in cadets from the late 80s into early 90s and all the rules they had to follow. It was very strict. And all of them, when they would come back, would say stuff like the Corps has was their phrase.
Right.
The Corps has gotten soft, for this reason, for that reason. Every generation got worse and worse.
I think that's continued. I was a commander at the Air Force Academy for my last assignment in the Air Force before I started flying airplanes for Delta. But I started seeing that we were getting politically way to the left, and we weren't focused on breaking things and killing bad people. We were focused on making sure everybody was comfortable and
self-policing. It seems like because so many military bases that were named after like Confederate generals, they're like gotta rename those, or like West Point removed tons of Lee, the statues, or there's the like memorial walk, and they're like, how can we scrub this part of American history from us because we don't like it? It makes us uncomfortable.
And for people in the military that are retired like me, if you were in the Army stationed at Fort Bragg, it will always be Fort Bragg. It's not Fort whatever it is now, Liberty or Victory or whatever they came up with. Whatever what the marketing people said was probably going to be a good name for a base.
The least controversial name.
Exactly.
Base,
Yeah.
Let's jump to the story from The Guardian. Terrifying. Democrats react to Trump saying people won't have to vote again. Former president told Christian supporters on Friday it'll be fixed in 4 years if he wins the 2024 election. So he says, Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years. You know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good, you're not going to have to vote.
My only
And
objection
now-
is that you didn't do that in your Trump affect.
Yeah. Now the left is arguing, Democrats are arguing, he's saying he will become a dictator for life, that he's saying you will never vote again. Vote for me now, and then you'll never... What he's saying is, he's being hyperbolic. His administration is going to do so well that Christians will be satisfied for a lifetime. But to be fair, in that argument, Democrats are legitimately like, he's going to make Christians happy for a lifetime. That doesn't mean he's dictator for life. It means, I got a feeling he's going to actually enforce standard protection under the law. Like, you know, we watch the Olympics mock Christians. And this is Paris, so it's not in the United States. But this same concept in the West of mocking Christians and getting away with it, it's actually against the law in the United States in certain circumstances if it's discriminating against people based on religion. And they do it to Christians all the time. And they do it to white people all the time. And it doesn't matter if you think the group is in power or up or whatever. It's illegal. I have a feeling Donald Trump is going to go in. He's going to say, you can't discriminate. It's illegal. It's in the law. And they are going to lose their minds because that means their privileges are being taken from them. And to someone who is privileged, equality looks like oppression. Isn't that what they say?
It's kind of crazy how it works out that way. I mean, I listened to this clip because I was listening to, I think it was an NBC reporting, and they were saying, you know, at a rally over the weekend, Donald Trump said that there would be no more elections after he became president. And then they played the clip, and it's like, that's obviously not what he's saying at all. In fact, the fact that you think that like, ideally, and I'm not saying this is everyone's ideal, but if you lived in a country where you're like, well, things will probably be okay, I don't necessarily feel the pressure to vote, maybe that would be a nice reality, right? After years and years of like, you have to vote this election, our democracy and way of life hangs in the balance hysteria. If you had a president that was like, look, after this, things are going to be good, you can vote, but also you won't feel this overwhelming pressure that if you don't cast your ballot, everything is going to fall apart. Like, maybe that would be okay, considering the Biden administration was just telling us that we need to dial down or turn down the political rhetoric.
Right, as he wants to change up the Supreme Court.
Well, you just have to stop questioning him.
But it's funny, Trump he doesn't give them, but they take every day a new good people on both sides from him. And they don't care if the spell's been broken. They're
just trying to see what'll stick, though.
We'll take it, and we know a certain amount of people watching will believe it.
This is a big challenge for us. We're dealing with people who can't understand this humor. And I think the only way to really describe it is low IQ individuals who don't have higher ordered thinking capabilities. So take a look at this tweet from me. I tweeted this. Kamala's Project Special K makes Project 2025 look like daycare. She will force women to get abortions, send military to kidnap poor Hondurans and make them live in your homes. She will start 800 new wars. God help us. I kind of thought saying that she would start 800 wars. I was like, do I need a Poe's Law disclaimer on this? Nah, I'm probably good, because 800 new wars would mean she would start 4 wars per country, and some countries more than 4. So I don't know what that means. And it's intentionally mocking the Project 2025 tweets. The response from the left is, what? You actually think she's going to do that? You're crazy. And I'm just like, they believe the Project 2025 lies, and they think this tweet is real. How do you live in a country and make it function when these people are voting and they're half the voting population?
Because the virus of politics has taken the humor from these people that are infected. They don't see anything. Everything's literal. So many people on
800
online,
new wars.
Yeah, dude.
You got to have like an IQ of 85 to think 800 wars is possible.
I think a lot of people do.
So basically, my idea with the tweet was, first of all, Project Special K. I named it after a cereal. Come on, they believe it's real. They're like, they don't believe that there's an actual Project Special K. They think I'm literally claiming she has one. Project Special K. And I basically was like, what's the opposite they're saying of Project 2025? But they're all sharing this being like, this is what the right actually believes. It may be. that the prominent pundits know what satire is, but they know that their voting bloc is too stupid to realize it. And so the same reason they believe Project 2025, they will believe the pundits telling them that an obvious joke is not. Case in point, Bill Maher, when he was like, this Jack Prosobic says, we didn't end, welcome to the end of democracy. We didn't end it on January 6th, but we will endeavor. I mean, this is what they're saying? And Batya Ungar-Sargon is like, Bill, that's a joke. And he's like, well, I don't know. I mean, don't quit your day job, Jack. These people don't understand what jokes are. Their brains don't have that higher function.
Did you have to see Bill or Hillary see them react to the news, like when they were talking about them, like not just with the Monica stuff, but like anything,
everything, every morning.
And was there any humor? Like I can imagine, as evil as I think Bill is, he still has somewhat of a humor to him.
No, Bill's funny.
Yeah,
Bill's funny. He's when he wasn't being presidential,
right?
He's funny. Hillary just doesn't have that gene. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the German trains during World War II, keeping them on time and, making sure everything is spit polished and shiny, and
right.
Bill's not getting in trouble again. Because I was there doing all. It wasn't just Monica, man. It was Kathleen Willey. It was Paula Jones.
That's right.
Yeah, I was all going on at that time.
Was the media as in lockstep against them or with them throughout certain times, like they are now with Biden or Trump?
The media was very much in lockstep with Clinton.
Yeah,
very much.
Even they did. I was young for the Monica stuff, but I remember
they did a really good job covering up for him, and because Hillary basically came out and said this is all a right-wing conspiracy, vast right-wing conspiracy, and the media said, well, you know what, she's probably right because she's Hillary,
right?
So let's go with that.
So it's kind of like how the media dealt with JFK with his coverage.
Oh yeah,
because you can go on YouTube and watch some. They're amazing interviews, but it's weird because you'll see the media asking JFK. After asking him the question, be like, do you want to do that again? You want to answer it differently or anything? Like, that would never happen today. They'll edit it down to make you look as bad as possible. And they're giving him all the grace they need.
And the clock behind you is flipping between different timestamps as they edit it out of context.
It's wild.
Exactly.
I really want to know what the relationship between ABC News and the Biden administration is, because it's just weird,
like
right?
Stephanopoulos and stuff.
Right. Like, Stephanopoulos gets the first post-debate interview. Fine, okay, maybe that could happen. But also then the Secret Service director, Kimberly Cheadle, doesn't have a press conference. Her first public statements are in an ABC interview. I mean, it seems like
point.
Right. Like there's always been a relationship between the media and different branches of the presidency.
And it goes back to the Clintons.
Yeah.
So Stephanopoulos, when I first got to the White House, he was their his senior political advisor.
Yeah.
And then he got a job at ABC. So that this is all, it's so incestuous.
It's like Psaki now, wherever she's at.
Yeah.
And then the Obamas have that kind of ABC connection because they also had the Jussie Smollett connection, and Smollett got the whole crying on ABC thing.
Jennifer Psaki did one of the best post breakdowns. It was on her Instagram stories, and it was after the Biden, just train wreck of a debate where he just really looked so weak, and it was a bad performance. Everyone knew it, and she was doing this thing where she's trying to spin for him, and I wish I could remember the exact quote, but maybe I'll share it tonight on Instagram. But she's saying even if the Joe Biden's accomplishments as president, which are not being consumed effectively by the public right now, she's basically saying you guys don't understand how good of a president he is, and therefore you don't deserve him, kind of thing. It was very, very weird. But yeah, again, there is the relationship where they all kind of come and go from the White House, and especially with Democratic White Houses, they're always sort of back and forth between the two. Cheadle was Biden's personal, was on his detail, left for a little bit, came back, gets to be the head of Secret Service. I'm sure Jen Psaki thinks that she has a way back into the White House. If Harris if Harris gets in, I mean, it's very.
It's one big happy family tree, son.
That's it.
Gross.
Yeah. Who's at the top of it?
Of what?
The family tree. Right.
Son?
Yeah.
The family tree, son?
Yeah, of this right now, like in politics.
The top of the family treason?
Yeah. Oh, tree son. I was envisioning a family tree with the Obamas hanging on it, like
that was
apples.
that That was the joke.
So when you wrote your book,
Over my
did you
head.
have anyone say like you shouldn't do this because you're ruining your chance at like future, jobs with a White House or on a campaign? Or
No, I was already retired from the Air Force, and actually some of the guys I work with at the White House kind of reached out and said, you're the first person that can do this legally, because when you're in uniform, you can't. If you're active duty, you can't come out and talk about politics. You can't certainly can't be contemptuous of a sitting president. So I waited till I was retired. I was flying for Delta Airlines, and I thought, these guys reached out and said, why don't you go ahead and write a book? And I did. And you know what? I'd never written anything in my entire life, and it came out number one on the New York Times bestseller list. I was on Rush Limbaugh, and it just took off from there.
Yeah.
So, and again, the Clintons don't like me.
Did you have pushback from the editors at any point? Were they like, you
No.
can't say this? Or-
No, I mean, I made sure that the Pentagon and the White House Security Office that I didn't cross any lines there in terms of classified information.
Right.
So I had it vetted, and then once they said no, you're good to go, let it rip.
I wonder if those manuscripts made it to Hillary at some point and she read it.
She came out. I mean, I'm sure she's got a copy.
Let's jump to the story from the Post Millennial. AOC claims family first MAGA movement are weird incels as Kamala campaign takes aim at white men. This has been the big play from Democrats over the weekend. It's that J.D. Vance is weird. Donald Trump is weird. I'm going to read you this tweet from AOC. She writes, being obsessed with repressing women is goofy. Trying to watch what LGBTQ people do all the time is abnormal. Punishing people who don't have biological offspring is creepy. It's an incel platform, dude. It's super weird, and people need to know. I'd first like to point out the oxymoronic statement in that it is a movement of people who want you to have biological offspring, but they're also incels. Mm-hmm. I don't know if AOC knows this, but in order to have children, you have to have sex.
Right.
So that seems contradictory. That being said, I you know what I'm more irked by? I don't care. In fact, I actually really appreciate that Democrats are like, Trump and they're weird. Because weird is good. Conservatives should be like, oh, thank you. Like, you think youth vote people want the stodgy suit wearing? This is my complaint with conservatives. You show up to Turning Point USA, and even the kids are wearing suits. And no, don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place for a suit, and I understand they're trying to be proper and traditional, all that stuff. But if you want to be approachable by run-of-the-mill regular people, this is why Fetterman wore the hoodie everywhere. And Republicans mocked him, and I said, you're wrong. This is the Trump well-done steak with ketchup thing, but you're making the mistake. Because he's targeting his constituents in PA who are blue-collar working-class guys who want to wear a hoodie and jeans, and they are your base, not his base. So I tell you this. You think that's weird? Yo, I went right off the bat. I said, I bought a 95-foot-tall billboard in Times Square for my rooster. There it is. That's Roberto Jr., and there's a cartoon version of him screaming. And that's what we did. You want to talk about weird? I am happy to be weird and call you boring. You are stodgy, lame. You are the preppy kids who are boring and crying when you forget your homework. The Democrats are the woke virtue signaling people who are like, follow the rules or else. You're not allowed to break the rules. And I'm like, I don't care about that. We're going to have rock and roll and skateboarding because we're weirdos. And you know what? Republicans seem to be fine with that. And they may be stodgy suit-wearing dudes too, but I'll take weird any day of the week.
I love that progressive has gone so far that being a dad from Ohio is weird. Being a family man who's married with children who thinks that people should have them is weird.
Well, I was mentioning this a while ago. This is I Am Legend. Are you guys familiar with the graphic novel? Have you seen the movie? The movie's terrible, by the way. Okay, but Will Smith did a movie. In the graphic novel, it's, long story short, guy's a vampire hunter. He's going around, he kills vampires. In the end, he gets arrested by the vampires. He's put in jail. And he's looking out the window at all these vampires and vampire society. And he realizes when everyone in civilization is a vampire, he is the monster of legend. He is legend. He's the creature that lurks while they sleep and kills you in your bed. He's the boogeyman. And so initially the story is vampires are taking over. They're attacking people. The vampires are legend. He says, I am legend. This is what we're seeing with Democrats. They have become so degenerate that a regular working class, or he's actually working, he got out of his Appalachian roots and went to Harvard, right? Or was it Yale?
He went to Yale for law school.
He went to Yale Law School. That's the American dream. To them, they are the vampires going, oh, like, what is this strange creature?
Yeah. I think this is so funny because it's like all of this started with his like we're effectively run by childless cat lady comment from 2021, right? And then they were like, well, he is so mean and he is so bad. You can see other clips of him where he talks about people like if you wanted to have children, you couldn't, you should be treated with empathy. Like it's people who opt not to have children he's referring to. And then he defended on Megyn Kelly being like, obviously it was sarcasm, but they're missing the point, which is that like we should have a culture that wants people to have families and be invested in what we're doing.
Can we pull up the New Yorker cover, the New York Magazine cover? Look, man, I don't know if I'd call this weird. You can call it whatever you want. It is a picture of Kamala with a large head. I'm not kidding. They made her head very big, sitting on a coconut. It says Kamalot, and there's a bunch of Democrats and is that Beyonce, I guess? And they're dancing and cheering. Okay. Look, man, the one thing Democrats had always been good at, especially with Barack Obama, was having charisma and being the cooler party, having celebrities on their side. But they've become they're the hall monitors. Look, man, Donald Trump is like the schoolyard bully smoking cigarettes in the back. And they're the hall monitors being like, you're not allowed to do that. You're a bully. And he's like, shut up. And he flicks the cigarette in their face. And they're saying, you're weird. You're weird. And he's like, I don't care. So I'm wondering, genuinely, if Gen Z is going to be like, we want to be hall monitors. Or if they're going to be like, we want to do things that are fun and like not in the status quo. Because Democrats, I mean, what is this? Like, this is, okay, look, man, if this to them is normal, I got no problem being weird.
This is not appealing to people.
I mean,
I can't imagine this is appealing to people.
Also, the coconut reference, isn't that like a racial slur for brown-skinned people?
Falling out of coconut trees.
Well,
She said her mom said it, so it was okay, right?
Yeah.
No, the coconut thing is a reference to a person who's brown on the outside and white on the inside. It's considered like a racial slur for someone who's not a part of their community. So, like, I thought everybody knows like brown on the outside, white on the inside. If you're Asian, they call you a banana. Yellow on the outside, white on the inside.
Never heard that one either.
Yeah,
I'm not
banana.
into racial slurs, so I don't know these things.
but it's an internal racial slur like Uncle
Right.
Tom. So like like my friends who are Asian, whose parents were Asian immigrants and their kids grew up in America, there are other people who are Asian would call them bananas. They'd say they were raised in America, so they don't even speak their native tongue.
Right.
They're yellow on the outside, white on the inside. And then coconut, I thought that was like a common racial slur. Maybe like I don't know,
I
man.
just
like,
thought they were going off her mom alleged like do you think
No,
you
of
fell out of
course.
a coconut tree thing?
Right. Which apparently is also a racial slur. Someone said it was a racial slur in Eastern Europe. That it's a slang term they use to describe someone who comes from Africa and doesn't have proper manners. They say you fell out of a coconut tree to reference black people who don't act properly. It's like a racial slur. But like, I get the coconut thing. They're trying to make reference to her saying, my mom said you fell out of a coconut tree or whatever. But all they're doing is showing Kamala with a big head sitting on a coconut. And I'm wondering if their message is being properly conveyed. Or what, I don't know what their message is.
Who's the person in the back with the gloves?
I have no idea
I
who
think
that
that's
is.
isn't
JoJo
Char-
Siwa?
I thought that was Charlie XCX. Who's
Is that who that is?
Oh, Brat. Right. I see.
Uh-huh.
I
I
see.
mean,
She's
but-
co-opted that.
Again, like this is
It's so Brad.
is
If
he?
this is what Brad is, I am going to take this picture, and any Gen Z who says that's Brad, I'll be like, this you? Like, you can have it.
it's very weird. I mean, they're literally propping Kamala Harris up, right?
A coconut with a big head.
Right. They
at it,
want
it's so
this to
big.
happen so badly, and it's
Look what they
it's
wrote.
Gross.
They wrote, in a matter of days, the Democratic Party discovered its future was actually in the White House all along.
Can someone Photoshop the coconut into Trump's head? That'd be great.
Oh, come on. But why did they make her head so big? I kind of feel like this is insulting them. Whatever. I mean, far be it from me to tell you.
You can
what
see
they're-
Nancy Pelosi kind of cowering in fear, right? The purple suit. I mean, it's a weird cover. And this is a question, I guess, maybe for the New Yorker, right? Because Kamala Harris's campaign seems to be clearly trying to say, like, oh, we're the youth's choice. Young people love us, whatever.
Yeah.
Is the New Yorker also trying to win over young people? Do they think this is appealing? Like, do they think their voters are excited about this?
I don't think young people
what
read
was the thought here?
the New Yorker or the New York Magazine as much as they used to. I used to look up to it. Like back in the day, I was like, that's the place I want to write for. It's total trash.
You know
Total
what's
trash.
funny about Kamala? Like Barack Obama, you could meme. The Joe Biden Obama memes worked. Like Joe Biden was a bumbling dotard and Obama was like, oh, come on, man. But Obama was charismatic. He knew how to speak. He knew how to control a room. He exuded presence. And when you make memes about him, you can understand. Kamala is just like devoid of charisma. So when they make memes about her, it's more like they're making fun of her than she is a subject of fun. You know what I mean?
It doesn't seem like something that is naturally occurring. It definitely seems like they're kind of mocking her. And to a certain extent, I think that's because they're trying to create a personality that's not there, right? Like I said this the other night, but when Maya Rudolph played her on SNL during the 2020 Democratic primaries, I mean, she made her sort of charming. She gave this hypothetical Kamala Harris a charisma that the actual Kamala Harris doesn't have, in my opinion. And so you got this fake Kamala Harris that I think a lot more people saw, which is, again, the SNL production, versus the real Kamala Harris, who, from what I know, has constant turnover in her staff, who couldn't climb high enough during the primaries to really make it on her own, who, seems to not really say anything. I mean, I don't know if you saw some of the remarks. Libby Emmons had a good tweet over the weekend, which is like, just read what she said, and none of it makes sense. It's like she's trying to finish a 2,000-word essay, but she only has 500 words written, so she's just putting in tons of filler. I mean, like,
there's nothing there. She, it's all filler with Kamala. That's all. It really is. I mean, even California Democrats hate her. I'll repeat that. I mean, California Democrats do not like Kamala Harris.
She barely won. Kamala Harris is to cheeseburger as McDonald's is. Wait, am I getting this wrong? Kamala Harris is like a McDonald's cheeseburger. There you go. And Donald Trump is that Wagyu beef steakhouse. No. Donald Trump is the Nusser-et golden shaved specialty cheeseburger. No, in all seriousness, she's like the NPC meme personified. She's got nothing but laughter. Yeah. Nothing but cackling.
That's why I really don't see her making it to the nomination.
I don't think, maybe.
I can't fathom her being the one to actually debate him. It'll be just as bad as Biden.
It'll be worse than Biden.
It'll be worse because she's actually, she's not like.
Well, and it's going to be different because she's going to come in with her righteous feminist energy, and people are going to be like, no matter what she does, she wins.
Have you seen her latest quote where she says something? They were like, what are you, like, what is the plan now in the White House? And she goes, what we are working on is what we will continue to work on because we need consistency in the work we're doing, which is what we're doing now. It was something like that.
The Libby tweet?
When your essay is 500 words, but it's supposed to be 2,000. Right?
It's wild. It's wild.
She's going to be debating Trump, and he's going to be like, we're going to build a big wall. We're going to start on the Eagle Pass and deal with the big problem that we have there. And with repairing the bollard fencing that we've seen, I think we did a tremendous job. It was very good, actually. And she's going to be like, the border is a big problem because it's a problem at the border. And we've got to deal with immigration because immigration has to be dealt with.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, Anderson Cooper's going to be like, brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
And then she's going to try to lob, attacks of racism against Trump, and then people will pull clips of her doing that to Biden, and then later on just being like, yeah, it's politics. Like, it doesn't mean anything.
I think the real challenge is, I think Democrats and Republicans, in this country, we have smart people, we have stupid people. The right are people who are like, hey, let's be honest about all of these things and try to be as educational as possible to all of the people and then have the best person win. And the Democrats are the elites who are like, nah, you misunderstand. These people are too stupid to get anything right, so I'm going to manipulate them. That's why you see people like, when I posted that Special K tweet, even the Krasensteins were acting like it was a real thing. And I know for a fact they're smarter than that. They intentionally act like they're stupid because their whole game is actually just they think everyone else. I mean, actually, Krasensteins, look at their history. If you pull up their Wikipedia, it talks about a website they ran that directed people to Ponzi schemes, which drained their life savings. The feds came in and took like $500,000 in their assets, and they had to cut a deal. And they refused to testify against the criminals that they had, for whatever reason, were being benefited by their website. These are guys who, in all context, appear to just treat people like trash to be extracted and extorted. And I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised they then play the Democrat line. I think Kamala I don't think she's stupid. I think she's not good at what she does. And I think the Democrat mentality is people are too dumb, so you have to manipulate them. And on the right, the populist right, I don't trust Republicans either, but the more MAGA version is tell them the truth and hopefully they understand. Matt Gaetz being a good example. AOC is a liar and a manipulator who says nonsense things to get internet donations. Matt Gaetz tells his constituents the truth in hopes for donations. That's the inversion.
Yeah. And the Kamala Harris campaign is very divisive, right? Again, I go back to the timeline of this. I mean, we have the Trump assassination, we have attempt, and sort of the energy coming out of this. Even people who don't like Trump saying, "Wow, that was big. This is unnerving that this is happening in our country." The rallying of the crowd. Then Biden drops out, but before that, he says we need to tone down political rhetoric. We need to pseudo call for unity from Biden. And then as soon as Kamala Harris' presidential campaign launches in full, it's well, I'm going to get this convicted felon who's a bad guy who's done all the things, and I'm the prosecutor, and they're wrong, we're right. Mm-hmm. Tons of just a return completely to identity politics, that the supporters of Trump are bigoted or backwards, that this is going to be harmful, that democracy's at stake. I mean, it went right back to where it was before. To me, this is just this disingenuousness that you're getting from the Democrats, right? They need the country to be divided, and anytime they claim otherwise, they're lying to you. Whereas I think actually, generally conservatives unity works well because mutual cooperation benefits everyone. If you want independence, you want everyone else to want their independence as well.
Yeah. I think she's going to be a hard sell to the counterculture types too in music. I'm watching someone like Sway Lee, the rapper, totally just going off on don't vote for her because of the prosecution record.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who are counterculture, maybe in the rap world, who are obviously into prison reform. It's going to be really hard for them who've been so open about even working with Trump, like Ice Cube, or, someone like that, because they actually want to change up the prisons. Yeah. Meanwhile, this is going to be a really tough sell because she's got a horrible record with it.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump to this next story. CNN, protests erupt in Venezuela as questions grow over strongman Maduro's victory. And so I think we've got some tweets here. Check this one out. This one's pretty cool. It's a billboard of Maduro being ripped down by protesters. I would say rioters. And then we have this from Ali London. He says, thousands continue to protest across Venezuela over the election results, accusing socialist President Maduro of rigging the results after the opposition was projected to win by landslide. I'm hearing now that Maduro is accusing his political opposition of trying to hack the vote and manipulate it. I don't know the full details on that, but likely I wouldn't be surprised if Maduro goes around and starts arresting people. And so it's pretty scary. Now, I'm pretty sure, didn't he seize all the guns so like nobody's armed anyway except for criminal gangs?
I don't know.
Probably.
That was going on. Jeez.
I don't know that I care about Venezuela, right? To be completely honest, it's not American politics. It doesn't affect us. We should be focusing on ourselves. But there is an interesting story here for us to pay attention to. What happens if a Maduro-like person gets into power in the United States, and we are at the precipice of this moment? We may already be inside the foyer of it already, about to enter the home. Take your shoes off before you walk in. That's how close we are. It may be this election. If we do not win, if Donald Trump does not win, we may find ourselves in a position in the next 10 years where this is the country. And this scenario is what I'm talking about. When I say things like, we're in a period of civil strife, could possibly escalate into civil war, and everyone says, no, it can't happen. How could it possibly happen? Take a look at Venezuela right now. Half the country is arguing that they won. Half the country is arguing they won, and they're rioting in the streets. Confidence breaks, cities devolve into chaos, and we don't know where this ends up. All that matters is, who does the military back? If the military bifurcates, congratulations, you get civil war.
Yeah, I was just reading, I forget the guy's name, I think it's Michael Pena, and he was a political analyst from Venezuela. He said the military is responsibly central to shaping what finally happens, and they are like a sort of great elector in Venezuela, So that's what's going to happen. They're just going to enforce whoever they.
And there are a lot of factors in who the military sides with. The military isn't necessarily going to take a political stance. They're not going to say, well, we like Maduro more than we like the other guy. What's his name? Gonzalez, I think his name. I can't remember.
Maria? Was it Maria?
The guy who run?
I thought it was.
Was it Maria?
Could be wrong.
You're probably right. I don't know. Who was he up against? I don't know much about Venezuelan politics. I've not been there in 11 years.
Opposition leader, it was Maria Corina Machado.
Okay, there you go.
Also claimed victory in the contested election.
What's going to happen is, if these protests don't stop, and they go on for, say, like 3 months, the military is going to say, okay, Maduro, you're out. Because the country is gone, and if we don't just, this is what happened in Egypt with the Muslim Brotherhood. They have their first revolution, the Muslim Brotherhood wins, the majority secular voting blocks that were separate, I'll try to make this quick. Egypt has a revolution. For the first time in 30 years, they're going to have elections. The military gets removed. They say, okay, form your political parties and then get your candidates up, and then we're going to vote. What I was told by the locals was that it's a majority secular voting bloc, but they were split up into a bunch of different parties. So the Muslim Brotherhood gets 21% of the vote, but that's the single largest voting bloc. So whoever gets the most votes wins. Well, that makes no sense, because now you've got 70+% of people, or like 60, who are not willing to align with the Muslim Brotherhood, who begin rioting and protesting again. So there's a second revolution a year later. That one I was actually present for. And the military says, okay, you are out. The people do not want this. We're having a new election. Unfortunately, the Muslim Brotherhood wins again. So what the military does is they decide to drive around just gunning down the Muslim Brotherhood and killing them. Because they were basically like, okay, this is going to keep happening unless we eliminate the Muslim Brotherhood. And the only votes that you can actually have are going to be between the secular parties. So they decided they'd eliminate everybody, and the military took control. Venezuela faces something similar. And the same could happen here in the United States. Now, because the U.S. is so big, it would be very interesting. It may just fracture into regional governments.
What do you think, Buzz?
I think that's probably what's going to happen. I think about this a lot. Can you imagine? I think we would be in a civil war, a shooting civil war right now if Trump had been killed. I think that we would be shooting. I think we've been in a cold civil war for a long time.
How far you think? How long back?
Going back probably 2010, 2012.
Yeah.
About those years.
Obama years.
Obama years, yeah. I mean, I think that was the beginning of a lot of the division we're saying right now. But I think, if
Trump...
if Trump had been killed...
This is the big speculation. Many people have been saying we were a millimeter away from a civil war. I don't know that I agree that it would kick off right now. I actually don't think so. I think that I think it would be confusion. I think nobody would know what to report. The factions on the right would be losing their minds, and the energy would be cranked up to 12.
Right.
But I don't think you'd have people saying, go out and do anything. The confidence would not break likely until into next year, in 2025. Nikki Haley would have been the nominee. The MAGA faction would lose their minds, but they don't protest. These aren't protesters.
Right.
So what likely would happen, in my opinion, if Trump would have lost his life, Joe Biden says, oh, it's so sad, we're so sorry. Nikki Haley becomes the nominee. You then have the news reporting, it's a historic moment in America where your choices are two different female BIPOC. You can choose Nikki Haley, a woman of color, or Kamala Harris, a woman of color, and they're both pro-war. And that was the play. The election results would be bonkers because no Trump supporters voting for either of them. And so the results would be very weird. You'd certainly get some people being like, guys, just vote for Nikki. She's better. She's not woke, whatever. But you'd see major revolt. Then we'd probably see into what I think would end up happening is people on the right would disassociate themselves from government. At this point, it would be so dramatic. And this is what people don't seem to understand. It is not a moment where some militia in the middle of Nebraska says, we declare war. No, it's just a couple guys being like, there's no government, I guess. And then federal authority means nothing to them. They declare sanctuary or they do nothing. All that matters is that if enough people around the country simply just said, America is lost, then you have dissociation. States slowly start dissolving cooperation with other states. The federal government can't do anything about it. There's not enough federal law enforcement agencies, and it would be more like a Soviet-style collapse. So I don't think, I don't know in what scenario you'd end up with people attacking each other, right? Why would they? Why would anyone from...
I think there'll be little skirmishes that'll start,
But who against who and why? Right. So look.
So let's say that MAGA. So let's God forbid assume that President Trump has been shot, and so MAGA is out there, and MAGA has the guns.
But who is that, and where are they?
Predominant. Well, they're everywhere. I mean, there's half of the country.
I don't see anybody in West Virginia in the mountains loading up on guns and driving anywhere else. So there's no risk to anybody in a red or deep blue area because they're already isolated among their own peers.
Right.
That's why I don't see conflict happening. Portland is fighting Antifa, and that's a far left city fighting itself.
Yeah.
I don't see Trump supporters from West Virginia going to DC.
I could see them going into heavy defense because the left has infiltrated their state after some event happens like that, and they're like, we got to take care of the MAGA extremists.
This is dissociation.
Yeah.
So, like, what would happen in West Virginia? I'd imagine if Trump lost his life, the state and most states would call their federal politicians back for discussion. The governor would call a meeting with state and local reps. They'd be like, what are we doing? What's happening? There would be a bunch of states probably trying to make agreements. The federal government would be basically nothing.
Right.
Without legitimacy of the Secret Service being lost, there'd be questions, investigations, news stories. People would be saying, no way it was an accident. Right. Alex Jones, of course, every right-wing personality would be like, they made the move that Tucker Carlson predicted 9-10 months ago. It happened. And people would dissociate. So Tucker Carlson says in September, we're in assassination territory. Nobody in Appalachia is going to go drive to New York or DC or Portland or Chicago. So there's not going to be a chance for skirmishes like this. But dissociation is real. So the federal government can no longer enforce federal law in any red area if it's controlled by, blue elements or whatever. And the only conflict you might end up seeing then would be if federal law enforcement tried to assert themselves in an area that is dissociated, not intentionally. I'm not saying people in West Virginia go, we hereby declare that we're seceding. I'm saying that dudes in the mountains are like, who are you and why are you driving down my roads? And they're like, we're, EPA or whatever. Like, no, you're not. Turn around.
Yeah.
That's more likely what I see happening. Soviet-style breakdown where states just start dissociating from each other. You may then get resource conflict, and that could lead to conflict, but that's not for a couple of years.
I could see the implementation of manufactured retaliations to make it look bad on the MAGA side to then crack down on them. Like Operation Gladio type stuff. What we did in Italy and AtCon here.
There may be, if it was intentional and there was a plan behind this, then they wouldn't just let things fall apart. So it's probable they would immediately move to secure red governors as loyalists and be like, they'd go to red state governors, they'd show up with pictures of JFK, and they'd be like, it's you against us and it ain't going to happen. So fall in line. Nikki Haley's going to be the president. The Republicans will get a conservative president, but she's giving us our wars. And that'll be the play. And so you may end up with, in that instance, insurgent violence, but I don't see it breaking down. They wanted Trump to lose his life, whoever was involved in this. And so that means I don't think that they didn't have anything in mind for what happened. Now, that being said, it looks like sheer desperation. They tried to put Trump in prison. It didn't work. He ended up winning with the Supreme Court ruling on immunity, even shutting down the hush money case. So that may have been just abject desperation, which could mean they did not know what comes next, but they were thinking it's better than the alternative, going to prison for the rest of our lives.
It's willing. They were rolling the dice. It's still worth it, from their perspective. So.
I still think.
I was going to say, I think Buzz touched on another important thing, which is that I think we do have a sort of cultural civil war already afoot, right? We aren't a country that has an exact, a shared common goal right now. Yeah. I say this, somewhat frequently. I hate to sound like a broken record, but it would be one thing if both political parties were like, ultimately, we want, prosperous American citizens who are united, who are patriotic, who want to have families, who feel like they can be self-reliant. Like, if they had a shared goal, then debating what's the best way to get there would be different. Then right now it's like, this is our worldview, our philosophy, and we want to install it. And here is the other guard that feels as though they are guarding tradition. I mean, it's at odds. It's like you're saying, there's a fight over it.
I think the greatest chance for civil war would, if Democrats win, if Kamala wins, I think Republicans grumble. You may end up with some degree of dissociation and a lack of confidence over a couple of years. If Trump wins, the left is going to just lose their minds, smash and destroy. We already saw this in 2020 where, and this is interesting, if you read the Time magazine article on the shadow campaign to fortify the election, they write how they were trying to stop mass rioting and save this country with their fortification of the election. That's weird. Trump supporters aren't going to be the ones that are rioting. I think the worst thing Trump supporters have ever done is January 6th. And half of them were just walking into a building like tourists, and the other half were the ones that were rioting. The far left, however, if Trump were to win, then you're going to see the West Coast in flames. And in 2020, Boston Globe reported that Democrats war-gamed the election. And I think it was Podesta's group argued that the West Coast states should secede from the Union unless Trump gives them guarantees. And that's so it's not if Kamala wins. If Kamala wins, Trump supporters and Republicans are going to go, oh, we're so mad, because that's what they do. They're going to say it was rigged, and that's going to be it. There'll be a lot of lawsuits. We'll see. But if Trump wins, that's when I think the left goes crazy. Now, what I'm hoping is Trump wins and everything is run like a well-oiled machine. You may get protests and riots, but I hope they're handled in a standard manner. Local law enforcement can deal with riots like riots are normally dealt with, nothing out of the ordinary. Donald Trump appoints a good attorney general and deputy attorney general. We see criminal indictments where they are warranted. And then bad people who break the law go to jail. And then hopefully that uprights the ship. But I can tell you, Kamala winning is basically just the U.S. border implodes. Yeah. You've got liberals in the big cities already complaining about this stuff. I see a short-term chaos when Trump wins, but long-term benefits. I see the inverse with a Kamala victory.
I agree.
That being said, we're going to go to Super Chats. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button? 1 like equals 1 fight, fight, fight. And become a member at timcast.com. Click join us to support the work that we do, and you'll get access to our Discord server, and you'll get to come hang out in our members-only uncensored show, which will be coming up at 10 p.m., so just about a half an hour. But until then, we're going to read your Super Chats, and we will start with good sir Clint Torres, who says, howdy, people. Howdy, Clint. Congratulations on the being the first. T-Bomb85 says, howdy, very fine people, with an eggplant and a peach emoji. I don't know that those plants go together in cuisine. I don't know. A peach eggplant dish?
I don't know about that.
No, that's no good. That's no good. You sir are mistaken. All right. What have we here? Shane H. Wilder says, make sure to buy some Alex Stein Primetime Grind. We don't do instant coffee in this household. Oh, I will also mention, go to Booney's HQ on Instagram. And, this past RNC, Hulk Hogan ripped his shirt off. And some people have expressed to me that it reminds them of Idiocracy, where, a pro wrestler was their president. And then you see Hulk Hogan, of course, the RNC, ripping his shirt off. And I said, well, I'll do you one better. We have a new segment up on Booney's HQ, Ow My Balls. And I recommend you watch it. It is real. I've had people watch this video. It's the latest clip. And they're like, is that real? Like, did that actually happen? I'm like, it actually happened. Okay, the story is Special Mike was skateboarding on a 2x4 with skate trucks bolted to it. And he was trying to do a trick and he fell. And it goes straight and just turns right and like a missile, boom, right into the Wesley's nuts. And it's hilarious. So watch that video. He's fine. He laughed.
He's in a wheelchair. What are you talking about?
Check that video at Booney's HQ on Instagram. You will laugh. You maybe cry. You maybe will. Maybe the men will cry a little bit.
I was gonna say you might wince in empathy.
Yeah. Triple Flip says, can we please start calling Kamala the Wicked Witch of the West Wing? That awful cackling laugh is insufferable. It seriously is. What?
Does Whitmer have a cackle? Does Whitmer cackle?
I don't think so.
She's got that under wraps somehow?
Well, Kamala and Hillary are cackling fiends. Cackling Kamala, they call her. Trump called her Lying Kamala. Oh, come on. Cackling Kamala. Right? It's got that alliteration in it. Okay. Alpha Turkey says, will these Orwellian lies ever stop? Will we see that Maduro voting spike like in Georgia again? What happens to the U.S. post-election? It's just chaos. Yeah, I don't know. I can probably just say, I get asked this all the time. It's the number one question for anybody who knows who I am. Whenever I see them, they say, what's going to happen after the election? And I'm like, I don't know. I can guess.
I thought you got an advanced copy of the script.
Tell us.
Yeah, I mean, I was right about in 2020. I was so right. I was accused of having foreknowledge of January 6th because I said in September these guys are crazy, and like come November when Trump loses, or if Trump loses, they're going to go to the White House. They're like storm the fence and like break in the building or something. Well, they never did that. But they went to the Capitol, of course, and there was a riot. And then I had leftists being like, this proves Tim Pool had foreknowledge. And I was like, no, it proves that I read the news and like read comments on the internet and saw what people were talking about. But they're so dumb, they can't actually understand. They're like, Tim Pool couldn't have guessed that, right? I heard from some leftist that he's wrong all the time. Well, whatever. Colonel Angus says, I heard that in Kamala's plan to give everyone a water buffalo, that if you don't have the facilities to care for an animal that size, you can opt for a baby kangaroo. Actually, that's Trump's plan. Trump's plan is that everyone gets a free baby kangaroo. That's right. Trump's great. Project 2025, I heard Project 2025 gives freeze in.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
I've heard Project 2025 gives everybody Fridays the day off. You can work from home or not work at all.
4-day work week.
The thing is,
Project 2025.
with Project Special K, everyone works on Saturdays.
Oh yeah,
So-
Kamala's Project Special K makes Saturday mandatory. Yeah, mandatory doubles.
Yeah.
And you just have to do it.
Probably Sunday too.
Sunday. Yeah,
There's
no,
church
for sure. Yeah.
Special K.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your only time off is when you're asleep.
Right. Yeah.
That way it's fair for everybody.
But that's
Yeah,
even
that's
shortened.
equality.
Yeah.
Project Special K also makes everyone walk everywhere, no matter how far you're going, because of
Right.
the environment.
Green New Deal. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah. Can't have that. Let's see. By the Fireside says the left calling MAGA weird feels like the scene at the end of every teen drama where the bully has lost the crowd and is nervously throwing increasingly weak insults at the protagonist while the school just stares at them.
True.
I think the answer is just to own it. And, some people are saying that J.D. Vance should use the weird term, but show family, barbecues, grilling. I guess, maybe if the play is, the challenge is there's only so much lowest common denominator. And with the hyper polarization in the United States, there's no real lowest common denominator anymore. J.D. Vance could target regular families, but the left is going to call him a white supremacist for doing it. Even, urban liberal like women who have kids, they're going to be like, that's white supremacy right there or whatever. So I think the real play is just to be like, if they're like, you're weird, go, oh. Well, I want to lower gas prices. I'm hoping that we can get some border security. I saw people complaining that they're upset about their community centers being overrun by migrants. I'm like, yeah, but you're weird. And be like, oh.
We want brat. We don't want weird.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know.
we should ask the two dads in the room. Did you know that you were going to be the countercultural icons that you are and the leaders of the incel movement when you got married and had children?
I didn't know then, but I do feel it when I walk through certain places in certain cities with children that the children are not welcome and families are not welcome.
Have you noticed I tell you this, the family bathrooms are turning into all gender bathrooms?
Yeah, we do talk about that. It's everywhere, airports,
Right.
all the time. Because
Yeah,
there's
and
more
I'm like,
people
they didn't.
like that.
I'm in an airport that's been around for decades. They did not just build that bathroom. It used to have a sign saying family restroom, and they just swapped the sign out. Now it's all gender
Yeah,
bathroom.
you can go change your own diaper now in there for the pronoun people.
The thing is though, look, man, humans want to have kids.
Yep.
Human beings want to do this, especially women. That's why they call it. What do they call it? Baby crazy, on
Yeah.
Archer.
Yep.
There was an episode on Archer when
But like baby fever, they talk about this with girls all the time.
in Archer. You ever see Archer?
Some of it.
It's like old. I was like 10 years old. But like the woman, what's her name, Lana or something? He's like, she's baby crazy, and she's like, I am not. And like, 'cause it's like a comedy thing. It's like a joke. So all of these women who are going to be told by the left over and over again to suppress this, like sooner or later, there's going to be like, nah, like I want to have a family. And then the problem is what the left promises doesn't give you the path towards any of that. So I don't know how you force. They're weird. Yeah, well, if you want to have kids. I've talked to a bunch of Gen Z people. I mean, Gen Z, they're in their 20s now, right? And like I'm going to the skate park and these guys are Gen Z and they're like, I'm trying to get a job, buy a house and have a family, but I can't. And I'm like, I'll stop voting for Democrats.
That's the counterculture now.
Well, the crazy thing is at the
That's
skate,
weird now.
at the skate
Yeah.
at the skate park, most of the people there are like, oh, I'm kind of conservative. And I'm like, oh yeah, of course. That's why it's the funny thing about this, like, here's a funny thing about this woke skateboard stuff that's going on with us in like Martinsburg.
Yeah.
So it turns out one of these guys went to the park and smashed it up and destroyed it. And they're mad at me. And then apparently, like, this is what happened because we went to the Hagerstown skate park, which is nearby. They were saying like, oh, we're mad Tib bought the park because now someone came and smashed it. And they're like, wow, who did that? And like, well, one of our guys did. It's like one of your guys went and smashed up the park. Why would they do that? Because they were mad. And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
This is what it is. And then the rest of the guys are just like I show up and everyone's happy to see me. I met a couple local skaters and they're like, dude, it's really cool. Thank you so much for helping out. But then these leftist pundits lie to everybody about what's going on. I got hit up by Will Sommer, who I guess now is at the Washington Post.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And he was like asking me about it. And I'm like, we own property in Martinsburg. Our employees live in Martinsburg. We skateboard in Martinsburg. And so we were trying to set up skateboarding in Martinsburg. We've talked to the county about helping fund a skate park. We've promised to assist in fundraising. We pledged $20,000 to a contest. And you're listening to some random guy on the internet who's telling you that everything's inverted. Boo. I'm like, bro, do you think that West Virginia is a leftist place? I got to break it to you. Like, everyone up there is super conservative and really excited about what we're working on.
Is it adults smashing up the spot? Are these like 13-year-old?
Oh, yeah, no, it's like a 30-year-old guy, I guess. I don't know. I don't know exactly which guy did it, but they were like, oh, yeah, that was our friend who did that. And I'm like, So you're like, we're paying for repairs to fix this park up, and your guy went and smashed it up. It's just like
You're mad at you.
for no reason,
Friend
literally
idiot.
no reason. It's just, and it's I don't know, man. These people don't want. I think the reality is that the right is basically winning. You to go to a skate park and see like these 24-year-old dudes be like, I'm conservative, and I'm like, how is it possible? How did Democrats lose the skate park? I mean, skateboarders were always like left anarchist types. And so they weren't necessarily voting Democrat, but they were hardcore punk rock, anti-right, critical of the right, skate punk bands, very critical of Republicans. And now they're all like, nah, I'm voting for Trump.
Because they became moral, snobbish tyrants.
They're the
Don't have
hall
any fun.
monitors.
They're humorless.
Yep.
There's no fun art. You can't do anything. There's no controversy. No fun.
Yeah. Matt Hardy says, hey, y'all, one of the best podcasts on YouTube. Thank you very much. It is a shame that our podcast numbers don't get calculated into podcast rankings because podcast rankings only basically use podcast platforms. So the show isn't necessarily like a podcast in the same way. But we get like 3.5 million per episode.
That's
Dang.
crazy.
Yeah, massive.
That's amazing.
That includes how we break the show up into clips, to be fair.
Right.
The actual, like, how many people watch the full hard raw, it's like 600 to 800K.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Pretty cool.
That's amazing.
And then the clips do substantially more.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like we're going to have like 7 different clips from this show, and then each of those will get between 50 and 200 or something. And then we post them on other platforms. And then after 3 months, we're surprised at how many views we got. Award-winning Taint says, I've been asked, what's it take to receive an award? It's not some hocus pocus. I kept my focus thanks to Mr. Bokus Pumpkin Spice Experience, a delicious drink for any occasion, award-worthy, one may say. I should have.
This is a jingle.
That was a good one.
Where's the music for this?
That is a good one. Lord, what does it say? Lord K. Lamino. Only response to Trump is weird as Kamala is creepy. Possibly with one of the many clips of her laughing at it on. Oh, could someone make this? I know you guys have the resource and there's a lot of you watching. Just do like a video of Kamala whenever she laughs, have like the edges start getting dark and then pitch shift her voice down. So instead of going, it goes, and then just make a compilation. Bro, you've probably got 40 minutes of her laughing that way.
At least.
Yeah.
I just like that Trump, the real estate billionaire who's got all these supporters, who's like, you know, deeply patriotic, is weird. Like, that's weird. Then sign me up, you
Yep.
know?
Are they going to make Kamala, like, when they're really desperate, like a dark Kamala? How's that going to work?
I don't know if they can do that.
I know. I like to see them. I like to see them try.
It's very odd. They're going to push a very strange narrative with Kamala, and I think part of it, or Kamala, because she doesn't have enough of personality and she has a bad record, so they have to spin as much as possible.
Just wait for her first, like, Colbert interview as a nominee.
I don't think she's going to be the nominee.
I really don't either.
Where do you think
I really
the
don't.
person will come from then? Because that's what I'm wondering.
It's gonna come from. I mean, I'm still thinking that Hillary's gonna want to throw her hat in the
But
ring.
she has to be nominated on the virtual roll call. Otherwise, they're not going to be in Ohio and like Nevada and other states.
Right.
They don't care since they have the cabal we talked about in the Time magazine.
Maybe.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. I just don't think.
I still think Whitmer.
Tony, maybe.
Yeah.
Tony Robinson says, I keep seeing stuff about Vance banging a couch and I don't get it. It is beyond the most made up thing, but I warn you, Democrats, you don't want to go down this road. There's a thing called 4chan. And if you want to talk about making weird claims about J.D. Vance, the things that will be claimed about Kamala Harris, dude, you're playing in the big leagues now. They're like, well, J.D. Vance is attracted to couches. You don't want to know the things they're going to say about Kamala Harris. I'll save it for the members only after show, because this is, family friendly right now.
How can we get Lisa, if you're listening, Montel Williams on the culture war? So we can interview
That's
him?
normie stuff, dude. You have no idea.
Well, that's the surface level. We'll
I'm
go down
talking
deep.
barnyards, and I'm talking
Barnyards. Okay.
If they're going to make up claims about J.D. Vance and couches, the things that people are going to
Well,
make
I
up
know.
about Kamala Harris
I mean,
are
talking
going
about
to
Clintons, we have the Frazzle Drip story. I'm not going to get into that on this. We can.
No, we're
get
gonna keep
onto
it family
later.
friendly.
Get into it later.
go to timcast.com, click join us, become a member if you want to be grossed out. All right, Jacob Ollie says, my friend in Puerto Cabello, Venezuela, he's an election monitor. He is telling me Venezuela's security is going door to door and picking up people who voted no Maduro. And he's heard firing projectiles. He's hiding and plans to flee to Colombia. Like Rwanda, evil. I believe it, man. Yup. All right. Reginald Fluffington says, I think the attempt on Trump was supposed to be a false flag. Trump gets taken care of, and Iran would be blamed, getting us into a war with them. Agreed. They came out right for like, Iran wanted to do something, and it didn't work. It's like, what? I think the narrative was Iran would be blamed for it. Nikki Haley would be like, I'm going to avenge Donald Trump. Vote for me. And then people would cheer. And then, I'm really fascinated what would happen with MAGA, basically, because the libertarians break instantly from the Republican Party without Trump. They're going to be like, Nikki Haley? Nope. Chase Oliver? Nope. We'll take nobody. And, post-liberals and disaffected liberals, people like on this show, instantly like, we're out. Nobody. And then it's basically just staunch neocon versus neolib again without Trump.
Yeah. Like the good old days.
Like the good old days of, yep.
You remember those days, right?
Oh, I do. I totally do. Yeah, I was right in the middle of them.
Code Monkey 02 says, a real good friend of mine was USAF honor guard in the Clinton White House. To confirm what Colonel Patterson said, the honor guard folks were ordered to not wear their blues around the White House while she was present.
Wow.
Jeez.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's real, man.
Person.
She's a nasty person. Ugh.
So what was it like being there and having these conversations with your other coworkers, right? Because I imagine there's certain stuff you can't talk about because of your position, but generally, was everyone like, are you seeing this? Was it openly discussed how uncomfortable it was to work for her? I mean, it seems like it'd be uncomfortable for me.
Well, there's only 5 military aides, so there's a small group.
Yeah.
And so the other guys and girls were kind of my sanity. The Secret Service guys were too. I mean, again, I don't know. I'm just shocked at what happened in Butler because the Secret Service guys and girls were my sanity at the White House. But we all knew that she was, hell on wheels.
A cackling fiend.
Cackling fiend. Yeah.
Pete Collins says, my father was a steward on Air Force One for almost 20 years and experienced the Clintons firsthand. According to him, the Clintons were everything your guest describes and more.
Man.
Another story.
100%. I could talk real quick about the time that President Clinton molested a flight attendant, a young lady flight attendant on Air Force One.
Maybe that one's for the members show because
okay.
Try to keep his family friendly.
Okay, this is a good story though.
Did you ever hear anything? Yeah, we got to hear that. Did you ever hear anything?
We'll roll with that one. And just real quick to stress, we have a lot of viewers who will play this show in their TVs in their living room while their kids are milling about or they're playing it in their car and they're driving. And so, we talk some pretty serious stuff. We'll save the Bill Clinton molestation story for the members.
Did you hear anything about Haiti when you were there?
Yes.
Because they straight up destroyed Haiti.
They did.
So much to talk about.
We're going to have to talk about that on the members only show.
Oh, man. You don't want to talk about how they birthed a nation of... Okay, I won't even talk about
The
it.
children in Haiti that have gone missing is going to be a little too heavy.
Missing children, cannibals, come listen
Okay.
to
Should I start a list right now of things we have to go back to?
Yeah, for sure. I think the flight attendant story is a good
Yeah,
read.
that's a really good one. It's disgusting, but you'll get it. You'll understand who Bill Clinton was.
Tyler Lawson says, hey, Tim, I just listened to Bongino's podcast today, and he said the counter sniper team was a local law enforcement unit and had been unable to communicate with the SS protection team on site. I wonder if that was on purpose. Yep. Nathan Sherwood says, Maddow said you can remember the even ring Naria because if you move a letter, it spells Aryan. Uh-huh.
I don't even know if that part's true or not, but it makes sense that she would say it.
That lady is just plum nuts.
Plum nuts.
Plum. What does that even mean?
That makes perfect sense, but it doesn't make any sense.
Yep. All right. What do we have here? Jet Barnes says, hey, I think you guys would like my new song, Drain That Swamp. Funny lyrics, fun tune. Would love to know what you think. It's available everywhere. Well, right on. Drain That Swamp. Semper Ive says, the leak tech seems sus. Even for simple range training, primary means of comms is radio. So why would they use text? Smells like something to set up incompetency rather than intentional. Yep.
Agreed.
The texts were sent intentionally so that later on they could say, oh, look, yeah, it's because we were dumb.
I spent 10 years in fiction workshops watching kids write dialogue. It just looked like fake dialogue.
Yeah.
Like, how is that real? But people are really incompetent these days, so it's a thin line.
Well, all right, let's go. Lord Crimson says, ears have a lot of blood flow. Highly vascular areas heal faster. New earring piercings normally heal in less than 10 days if they're taken out. And it was skin damage from a bullet grazing. I imagine he had a couple scabs and he healed.
I wonder if he's got any hearing issues. You think that's a thing?
That's what
No.
his doctor said he was going to keep monitoring for, but there
I don't
hasn't
think
been any
so.
sign
Yeah.
of it.
Lars Smith says, my route home was blocked by cops. I talked to one and he said over 100 cops are covering Biden's travel. Seems like Secret Service works well with cops for Biden versus with Trump in Houston, Texas. Well, of course, Trump's a former president, Biden's president, so they give him massive security detail. Ciel says, left-leaning Australian fact-checkers lost their accreditation last year for extreme bias leading up to the Voice referendum. Now, how about that? Let's see. Skoborsch says, I worked air traffic control for 30 years, retired in 2020. For the last 8 years, they accepted those who could merely breathe. Your government is in the hands of incompetence.
The other thing that we didn't talk about at all tonight, but I would be interested in hearing Buzz's take on, is everything that's going on with Boeing, right? I mean, they've got some sketchy whistleblower stuff. Their parts aren't working. The fact that you've been in the military and you have commercial airline experience, like...
And I flew Boeings my entire time at Delta. So I flew...
Did the doors come off them?
No, they never did. I'm not sure what's going on now, but I always kind of enjoyed Boeing. But I think that it's a different company today than it was when I was flying.
Interesting.
Jake says, LOL, Special K, also a name for ketamine.
Yes, true.
That's right.
I always assumed that was what was in the cereal. Am I wrong? I'm just kidding.
Well, back in the 1900s when they first made it. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
Trish Berry says, Trump meant that non-voting Christians need to vote this election to ensure a landslide too big to fix, and then he will repair the broken voting system and they won't have to vote again. Right. These are people he's saying, you got to go vote because they don't have high voter turnout. And he's saying, just vote for me this one time. You never got to do it again. He's not saying it's the end of voting. He's being like, guys, just please turn out this one time. Just one time turnout. They don't vote. Dude, I got to tell you, Christians don't vote. It's amazing how they don't vote. And this is what's fascinating to me. I mean, like obviously a lot of Christians do vote, but Charlestown's a really great example. Seamus is like, oh, the Latin Mass is having this procession protesting the Pride Month stuff or whatever. 2,000 people marching through the streets peacefully. And then I was like, why does Charlestown have a progressive city council? And I met a city councilman who's conservative, and he's like, watch the show. And then I was like, how come there's a progressive city council that just enshrined Pride Month in Charlestown, West Virginia, which is MAGA country? And he goes, conservatives won't vote. And I was like, you have a Latin Mass downtown with thousands of parishioners. They don't vote.
It's very different than my experience at the two churches I've been telling you about.
They're
Everyone there
very-
is mobilized like we are voting.
It could be changing.
It's like we have to vote.
Maybe because Trump has been coming out and been like,
Yeah, and they actually seem it's a mix of younger people our age, younger than us, and a bunch of older people, and they still seem to have faith in the system of the voting system. So we shall see.
what have we here now? Excited says, watching the left's awesome idea of communism at work in Venezuela, Maduro is taking out people that voted against him. Yes, hopefully it never happens here. Cole J says, Kamala's quote about the Russian invasion of Ukraine back in 2022 sums up her pretty well, IMO. What was that? I forgot that one.
What did they say?
I remember that was a big story where
The
we made fun
invasion
of
of
her made fun of her for it.
Kamala's comments on the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Big 7588 says Civil War II started with Bike Lock Man at the Battle of Berkeley in 2017. That was the point it moved to open physical violence. You guys remember the Bike Lock guy?
Not really.
He showed up to, there was a free speech rally, and a guy showed up with a bike lock and started cracking people over the head with it. A far leftist. Yep. It's really wild because the far left showed up. They had makeshift explosives. They were throwing M80s at old women. And the Trump supporters who were there weren't doing anything. I talked to one Antifa guy after the violence started calming down, and I was there just filming, and he was like, these are fascists, man, so we got to push them out of the area. I was like, you think they're fascists? And he's like, yeah. And then he pulls a knife out of his pocket. That's why I brought this. It's like, if I have to use it, I will. And then I was like, so you think that old lady over there is a fascist? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, you think she's a threat to you? And he's like, not her, but all of them here are going to push fascism. And I was like, oh, do you think that the people here think everyone should have a gun? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like these people want everyone to have guns, right? And he goes, yeah. And then I was like, so if they want everyone to have a gun, that means you too? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, so then you'd be able to fight back against fascist government. So they all want everyone to be able to fight back against the government. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, how are they fascists if they want the people in power to be able to fight back? I was like, I don't know. I don't understand how you, he was like, I don't know.
The sprockets went out of his brain.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he was talking to me shows that he wasn't as indoctrinated as the rest of them. He's probably just some local guy who was told bad people are coming. But it's like the cognitive dissonance is, hey, they're all conservatives, right? Yep. Conservatives like guns, right? Yep. Conservatives think everybody should have guns, right? Yep. So that means if fascists took over, you were able to have a gun because of them. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
It's low information stuff. It's like watching people tell, I'm watching the news today, they're saying polls are saying people have no faith in the Supreme Court because of what Biden's doing. And I guarantee a lot of those people can't even name 2 justices.
No.
So I got to stress this because a lot of people are becoming YouTube members. The members only show is timcast.com. So a bunch of people joined YouTube membership. It's timcast.com.
To hear the Clinton
You
story.
click join us, and then we're going to talk about the Clinton stuff and the not so family friendly version on timcast.com, not on YouTube. So I hope that is clear because a lot of people, I think, did not understand that, and so they clicked join YouTube membership, which is not the correct way to go about doing it.
Does this happen to you a lot? You're like, I've got this story about the Clintons, and all of a sudden everyone like looks at you in the room.
Yeah,
Write a book about it, maybe.
I've done several.
We'll grab a couple more here. Michael Halliman says, Buzz, great guest tonight. Keep up the Friday night stories. Look forward to them every week.
Friday Night Stories, is that what you run?
I do a thing I call Buzz's Bedtime Stories, and it's not always.
Oh, boy.
It's not always on Friday nights. But I talk about the Clintons a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And you do it on YouTube?
I do it on X.
On X.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button? 1 like equals 1 fight, fight, fight. Head over to timcast.com, click join us. In a couple of minutes, we will have the uncensored members only show up on the front page. You will see it in a little box saying uncensored member call-in show, where we will discuss the Clintons and the not so family friendly stories that, maybe earmuffs for your kids. So again, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL on Instagram. You can follow me personally on X and Instagram at Timcast. Buzz, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, see me at X also at Buzz Patterson. 2 Z's, 2 T's. I'm on all the normal socials, but X is my hangout.
Right on.
Where are the books? Where can they?
Amazon. Just go to Amazon and just punch in Buzz Patterson. I've got 4 that I've written, a couple bestsellers. The best one we're going to talk most about tonight is about the Clintons. It's called Dereliction of Duty.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you. I'm Shane Cashman. You can find me online everywhere. The show is Inverted World Live. That's Sundays at 6 p.m. I just did a crazy interview last night with a lady who escaped a cult that's been around for 100 years. The most shocking murder scenes I've ever heard of. Alex, my producer, and our jaws were like on the ground. It was crazy. So you can check that out later. Thank you all.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimwell. I'm so glad you could join us, Buzz, and I'm glad you could make it here, Shane. Yeah. You can follow Scanner News, scnr.com, at Timcast News on Twitter and Instagram if you want to follow me. I'm HannahClaire.B on Instagram. I'm HannahClaire.B on X. Thanks for everything you guys do. Have a good night.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in a couple of minutes. Thanks for hanging out.